Good morning, and welcome to the October 16, 2018 meeting of the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson? Here. Supervisor Christie?
Here.
Supervisor Miller?
Here.
Supervisor Valadez?
Present.
Chairman Elias?
I'm here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
Very good. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to start off our meeting. I got a number of things that I wanted to mention. First and foremost, it's my brother's birthday this week, so I have to give a shout out to him because he's over there at the city of Tucson, and they say we never get along with the city of Tucson, but I love my brother, so I'm going to say that. Next thing I wanted to say is that we have the student leadership from the Fred Acosta Job Corps here with us today. We have President Timothy Williams. Timothy, raise your hand or stand up. Yeah, there you go. Vice President Miguel Cortina. Yeah. Secretary Rosemary Madrid, and SGA Advisor Cristina Colmero. Thank you very much for bringing the students here. Give them a nice round of applause. There's some really nice students, and we met yesterday for about an hour and spent some time talking about our lives and where they brought us and how we can improve them, and ultimately about political discourse and how we can make that better for everybody. So it was a nice meeting, and I learned a lot from these students. So I just wanted to thank them especially for being here today. 50th anniversary, the Woods Library, this week as well. It's going to happen on Saturday. So please make it out to that event if you can. I think it's at 2 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. And we're looking forward to it. Our libraries are critical to us and our success as families and as friends and as people who live here in Pima County. So we're very proud of that system. And 50 years is quite an accomplishment for G. Freeman Woods Library. So we're very happy to have that happen this week. The next thing I wanted to mention to folks was at our last board meeting, there was a number of incidences that took place during the course of the meeting that were disruptive and vulgar, and we're not going to let that happen any longer. There were 2 vulgarities used during call to the audience, and a number of people shouting out from the audience using racial epithets and ugly comments about people's gender. That is not going to happen again. In fact, what I'm going to ask everybody is that they pay attention to being a little better to each other, a little kinder to each other, a little smarter about how we have this conversation, because I really don't care what everybody has to say. I mean, you're all welcome to come and comment is the more correct way to say that. But we are not going to allow others to be put down. We're not going to allow racial epithets to be shouted out from the audience or any shouting out from the audience. So this is the deal. If you're cursing during your comments during call to the audience, I'm going to ask you to leave. If you are yelling out from the audience, I am going to ask you to leave. This is all about being more respectful, being more smart, and the most troubling thing that came out of the last meeting in many ways was that I had 2 elders call my office and say that they were scared to come to the Pima County Board of Supervisors meetings because of the comments that have been going on and the rotten behavior from the audience. So with that, I want to apologize to anybody who was here at the last meeting and was offended by that behavior, and ask everybody to please follow those simple rules that I just made. No cursing. And if you say anything vulgar, you will be asked to leave. Anything I deem to be vulgar, you will be asked to leave. And there'll be no more shouting out from the audience. Otherwise, you will be asked to leave. So, with that, I thank you and appreciate your cooperation in that. Supervisor Christie?
I could just add to that, you know, it's great that this is probably the best example of democracy on the street, where everyone has the opportunity to meet and to address their elected officials face to face with whatever topic they want to discuss. I don't think it's a matter of one side against the other or one political party against the other. or one philosophy against the other. I think it's a matter of what it boils down to is the individual responsibility and responsibility for individual behavior. And it's important that everybody have the opportunity to speak, and to speak clearly, and to speak articulately, and to speak their mind. But it's just as important, as far as I'm concerned, that we not only speak, but that we listen, and that we can learn a lot from each other from listening. And that's why this board is here, is to listen. So let's think about individual actions and individual cordialness, and not look at things in terms of us against them, but in the fact that we all have the opportunity to speak, but most importantly, we all have the responsibility to listen. So,
Thank you very much. Okay. We have Reverend Greg Raichi from Fountain of Life Lutheran Church here today, who's going to offer the invocation. If we could all please rise, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this morning by Supervisor Miller. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Will you bow your head with me? Gracious Lord God, we have much to be thankful for today. Thank you for the people who live in our county, for individuals and families, for schools, colleges, and universities, for places of worship, for businesses, industry, and agriculture, for institutions of health care, for the many first responders who guard our lives and possessions and seek to keep us from harm and danger. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you for the many freedoms we share in our country, state, and in this county. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for loving the people of our county from within your boundless and gracious nature. In the Bible, you have directed citizens to submit to the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. I pray for the Pima County Board of Supervisors, for Allie Miller, Ramon Valadez, Sharon Bronson, Steve Christie, and Richard Elias. And for the many personnel at the very levels of the Pima County governance, I am asking, Lord, that you graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and finally, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please direct them to that which would please you and would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved Pima County. It is in the blessed name of my Savior, Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Pause for pause. We have a beautiful dog that's come with us this morning, and she's even come in costume. That's correct?
Yes.
Her name is Laura, but we call her Calabaza this morning because she's a big old pumpkin. So we're lucky to have her here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Laura and what's going on over at Pima Animal Care?
Okay, cool. Good morning, members of the board. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. Excited to be here with Flora. She is about 2 years old. We do know that she is very good with kids. Her family just couldn't keep her, so that's why they brought her to us. She's been pretty good in play groups as well. So we saw 2 little boys outside, and she got really excited and was really sad that she couldn't go over there and play with them. And she's also very fun to watch in the car. She just sits there like she belongs. So we had a fun little car ride this morning, and she's pretty calm, pretty quiet dog. So She's available, and she's dressed as a pumpkin because we have pumpkin patch adoptions going on at PAC from now until the end of the month. What you do is after you picked your animal, you go up to the licensing lobby, and there's a pumpkin patch to the left of it. And you go and you pick a pumpkin, and on the bottom, there's a discount. So, pumpkin patch adoptions, and that's why she's dressed this way. So that will be going on for the rest of the month. We also have a Halloween event happening on the 28th. It is kid-friendly, so please come in costume. We will be doing the pumpkin patch adoptions then as well, but we will have trunk-or-treating and candy, so if you need a fun place to go with your kids, come to PAC. So we'll be there. Thank you, everyone.
Very good. Thank you. What's your costume going to be this year, Supervisor Valadez? I think people will like it. They may not know me as Sawarita, but it's all right. We're going to start today's meeting with a presentation and a certificate of recognition to Kevin and Marie Daly for their lifelong service to the Flowing Wells community. I guess we move the item. I'll move the item. Second. Discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, Supervisor Bronson, please. Yeah.
Pat, you want to come? No, Jill, you sure?
Yeah.
And Chuck, you're a Flowing Wells graduate. Get down here. You know, that's your boss. It's National Boss Day.
Starting right guard on the Flowing Wells football team in his era.
Oh, and Chuck and Kevin are both Flowing Wells Alumni Hall of Famers, so I think that's an important piece to note. Okay, so Chuck and I are presenting Kevin and Marie Daly this document in honor of their long life service to Flowing Wells community. Mr. and Mrs. Daly may now add co-authors to their long list of accomplishments on behalf of Flowing Wells with the publication of their new book documenting the history of their beloved community from its founding in 1895 up through the 1960s. The work is the latest in Arcadia's publishing Images of America series of historical books that tell the story of America through personal recollections, dozens of photos, and extensive historical research. Like the wells of their community, literally the wells, the Daly's roots in Flowing Wells run deep. Mr. Daly's family stretches back to the beginning when Allison's brothers sunk pipes into the Santa Cruz River when it was actually still running, creating the flowing wells that fed their canal to the rich farmland northwest of historic Tucson. Mr. and Mrs. Daly founded the Flowing Wells Neighborhood Association and Community Coalition in 1995 to bring together neighbors, businesses, and local governments to improve the quality of life in what is commonly called the Wells. Mr. Daly, a graduate of Flowing Wells High School, serves as the president of the coalition currently, and he has also served on the Flowing Wells Unified School District Governing Board since 2000. Elected by the district voters 5 times, as would be expected from a family that has so selflessly served their community. All proceeds from the sale of Images of America Flowing Wells will be used to fund scholarships for students in the Flowing Wells Unified School District. On behalf of the people of Pima County and the people of Flowing Wells, we offer our sincere appreciation for your big-hearted service to Flowing Wells community and hearty congratulations on the publication of your book. May it sell many copies and fund many, many scholarships. Congratulations to both of you. And do you have a copy of the book? You didn't bring a copy of the book with you? Do either, both of you want to say a few?
feel like advertising.
Well, that's
Well,
the
it
point.
is.
It
That's the
is,
point.
that's the point. No, go
Oh,
ahead.
thank you for this honor. The book was a labor of love. We just wanted to get the message out about how special our community is and how much of a family we feel. Anybody that has worked in the district and as a parent or has a child in the district, we always hear about how they feel that it's a family. I know it inspired me, and I found a place where I could flourish in Flowing Wells, and Flowing Wells truly is a place where potential can find opportunity.
Why don't you just say a little bit about some scholarships?
Oh, well, what we're going to do, the special.
Yeah.
I am so proud to announce that the Flowing.
David, come on up.
David? Yeah, it's okay. This is David Baker. He's the superintendent of Flowing Wells Schools, and we have something very special to announce this year. We have 3 National Hispanic Merit Scholarship scholars in our senior class. That's the most we've ever had, and we got them all in 1 year. This has been a bumper crop.
It's a great year.
Yeah, it's a great year. So we're so proud. We are so proud. The little district that could. Oh, and the only 6-time A+ high school in Arizona.
Kevin couldn't be as successful as he is without Marie and Pat.
Of course.
Marie.
Marie, go ahead. Say hi.
Hi. I came to Tucson in 1984, to do my student teaching at Walter Douglas Elementary. Loved it and haven't left. And unfortunately, I can't teach because he's on the school board. I can't teach in the district because he's on the board. But I'm there every day helping and reading with kids and math and any way I can contribute to the community.
And Chuck, I'm sure you have some memories you want to share. No? He doesn't. Okay. Well, thank you all and congratulations, and I wish you'd brought a copy of the book.
Yeah, me too.
Go run out to the car.
Yeah, Kevin.
All right, very good. Congratulations, and thank you for all your commitment to our youth and to our neighborhoods. And Flowing Wells is a great place, important to all of us. Our next presentation is for the 40th anniversary of the Arizona State University School of Social Work, Tucson campus. And these are great people, and we have Dr. Leela Williams with us, Josefina Almada, who's Arizona State faculty, both of them, Georgia Benson, Aurora Ramirez, and Lulu Monge from Arizona State University students, and proclaiming the day of Friday, October 19, 2018, to recognize that 40th anniversary. I'll go ahead and move the item. Second. Motion and a second. Discussion? Any objections? Hearing none. Motion carries. I'd like to invite our friends from ASU to come up to the podium, and I'll do this presentation myself. All right. Yes. Can I ask you to hold this? We were going to get him a framed picture of Dr. Crow, but it's getting too close to November. So we are very, very pleased and honored to offer this presentation and proclamation to our friends at the ASU School of Social Work. Sometimes we forget how important the individual programs at the universities that exist here in the state of Arizona are. The School of Social Work has really created and helped hundreds of wonderful people integrate themselves into the workforce here in Pima County. And these are social workers who make a profound difference in the lives of young people, in the lives of working families, in the lives of homeless people, in the lives of elders. It's really quite amazing. And without them, I assure you, our community would not be such a nice place. These are folks who really get out there, who believe what they are taught, who work on it, are careful practitioners that truly make a difference for all of us. I'm very proud to even get a chance to come over and see you guys every once in a while. And I can't say enough about the impact that this particular program has had here in Tucson. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then I'll ask any of you that want to say something. Hopefully the students will. Whereas the Arizona State University School of Social Work established its Tucson campus 40 years ago in 1978, after first offering classes in Pima County in 1972. And whereas the ASU School of Social Work Tucson campus initially offered courses for a Master's of Social Work degree, then added an undergraduate curriculum for Bachelor's of Social Work degree in 1995. And whereas the ASU School of Social Work declares its mission is to prepare social work practitioners committed to social justice and to serving and empowering individuals, families, and communities. It contributes to the development and dissemination of social work knowledge and skills and affirms professional values and ethics. The school emphasizes understanding and respect for the unique social, political, and cultural diversity of the Southwest. And whereas the ASU School of Social Work Tucson campus has a strong collaborative relationship with Pima Community College and the University of Arizona, all dedicated to serving Pima County residents. And whereas the ASU School of Social Work Tucson campus graduates have been providing professional services and leadership throughout Southern Arizona since 1978. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Friday, October 19, 2018 as the time for all residents of Pima County to observe the 40th anniversary of Arizona State University School of Social Work Tucson campus, passed and adopted this 16th day of October 2018. Please give them a nice round of applause. Who wants to speak first? Anybody? Okay. I'll hold this for you.
I just wanted to invite anybody that would be interested in celebrating with us on Friday on our campus, which is just very close to here, west of Congress and I-10, that will be doing day-long workshops from 9 to 4 that are free and open to the public. You just have to register online, so you can Google us and see where you can find that information. And then in the evening, we'll be having a reception at Tucson the Cafe a la Carte. So we welcome anyone that would like to join and just hear a little bit about the work, what we're doing, and maybe you can get more involved with our school as well.
Josefina, please.
Well, I want to offer my appreciation to Chairman Elias and the rest of the board. And one honor has been to be associated with Pima County. I've lived here since 1975, and I've been with the school for over 20 years now. I'm very proud of the work that we do at the school, but especially I'm very proud of our students. And we have a small sampling of our students here this morning. We have Georgia, who's doing an internship at Primavera, working with homeless women. We have Lulu, who's actually working at Northern Arizona University, where they have a graduate counseling program, and Lulu's working on her Bachelor's of Social Work. And we have Aurora Ramirez, who's an MSW student, and she's placed with the House and Naval Service in South Tucson. At the school, we've always appreciated the support we've received from the board as well as the community. Thank you all for supporting our students as they have gone out into the community to be the helping hands, helping all those in need. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll get on with our next presentation. And I guess we got to do the picture thing, huh? Okay, our next presentation is to the is about the National Friends of the Libraries Week. And the presentation of this proclamation is to Mauda Robinson, Jeanette Davis, Sarah Recker, Friends of the Pima County Library, Tom Gribb, Friends of Oro Valley Public Library, Diane Thomas and Debbie Giancomelli, Friends of the Kirk Bear Canyon Library, Kirk Bear Canyon Library. That didn't quite come out right, did it? But I got it right. Gary Peterson, Friends of the Green Valley and Sahuarita Libraries. Amber Matheson, Director of our library system. Michelle Simon and Karen Prechtel Altman, Deputy Directors. Ruth Grant, Connie Weatherford, Jen Maney, Ken Zambos, and Jody Olson, Pima County Public Library staff. Chair will go ahead and move the item. Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none. Supervisor Valadez, please help us out and make this presentation to our friends from the library. Let's give them a nice round of applause as they gather here in front. Really great people.
Wow. Half the people in the room.
Supervisor?
Yep.
Just so you know.
All right. Well, it's certainly a pleasure to read this for half the room. Whereas these organizations celebrate and promote a literate community by supporting and funding enhanced library programs and services the Pima County Public Library System provides, Friends of the Pima County Public Library, Friends of the Arivaca Library, Friends of the Kirk Bear Canyon Library, Friends of the Green Valley and Sahuarita Libraries, Friends of the Oro Valley Public Library, and whereas these organizations promote literacy and provide vital and meaningful support to the Pima County Public Library by raising funds to enhance library services and programs, encouraging community involvement and volunteerism, providing valuable community feedback, promoting a love of reading and lifelong learning, acting as influential advocates on behalf of public libraries, and whereas these organizations have provided generous financial support to Pima County Public Library for over the years, including contributions of more than $430,000 in 2017-18. And whereas these organizations understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and help to ensure that our library system has the resources it needs to provide all ages programming, access to a wide array of print and electronic materials, and expert assistance in research, reader's advice, and family literacy efforts. And whereas the ongoing commitment of these organizations, their members, and their volunteers sets an example of how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the week of October 21st through to 27th, 2018 to be National Friends of Libraries Week, and encourages community members to join these organizations and to thank them for all they do for our Pima County Public Library and for all the residents of Pima County, passed and adopted the 16th day of October, 2018. So who gets to speak? Okay, I see a finger pointed this way. Who wants to say something here? Mara?
Thank you. On behalf of all the Friends organizations which support the Pima County Public Library, we'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for this proclamation and for their support and friendship to the library system. The library is one of the keystones of our community, and I think I speak for all of the Friends organizations when I say we're proud to help support the library and would like to encourage everyone in Pima County to take a look at what the library offers and to see what it can bring into your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very courteous.
All right, we'll give a minute for the room to clear. Hi, Amy. Thank you all for coming out today. We're on to call to the audience. So our first speaker today is going to be Roger Score. Mr. Score, please come forward and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Board, Mr. Elias, pulling up a quote from another pretty popular Democrat here. The former Democrat running for President of the United States said, "You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for." She actually said that. So as you attack us and tell us to be civil, you sit up here and tell us what we can say at meetings. I stand for the Constitution both of the United States and the state of Arizona. But every week you violate the Constitution of Arizona. A couple weeks ago, there was a young lady up here talking about how ISIS and stuff goes through the reservation down on the border. She failed to mention the extreme sex trafficking and drugs that also go through that reservation. The Tohono O'odham Nation has an extreme drug problem. They have an extreme human trafficking problem. Is this what you promote? And you want us to be civil with you as you disregard our sovereignty as a nation, our Constitution, our laws, our law enforcement, as you endanger our families by cutting back funding to the Sheriff's Department that we as voters elected to be responsible for that money? I don't see how the people are supposed to be civil very much longer when you attack us by taking away that funding to our Sheriff's Department. That's an attack against my wife and children, my grandchildren. That's an attack against the very nation that I enlisted in the U.S. military to defend. And now you go even further and attack our economy by today trying to go back to the Paris Accord and destroy us financially and hurt us economically, raise our taxes. My kids have jobs, and you want to attack those very jobs so you can fund your cronies and hand them money by stealing from these people? But we're supposed to be civil while you have your way with us. I don't find the civility in that. And it must be a bad day for you when you find out the other Democrat ended up 99% Slapaho and less than 1% American Native Indian. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Score. Appreciate the time you spend here with us. Our next speaker is going to be Jerry Chobani. Thank you for coming here, Jerry, today. Appreciate your time. Please give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Jerry Chobani, and I live in Oro Valley. Well, good morning, Chairman Elias and Board of Supervisors. While driving all over town at various sports functions, my grandson Roberto said, "Nana, there's another Huckleberry sign. Looking good." Well, apparently some of the students at Sahuarita High School in Supervisor Valdez's district did a video of high school history teaching, a teacher teaching about protecting themselves from zombies and from vampires. I understand that Mr. Raymond Valdez was at a function where Gary Davidson was speaking against the road bond 463, and he was very upset and rushed to speak to Mr. Huckleberry. I just wanted Mr. Valdez, Supervisor Valdez, to know that Gary Davidson is a very nice man and not a vampire. So you should not be fearful of him. Another subject I wanted to that I remember reading about is about a professor in San Diego area. I believe his name was Dr. Ramirez. He then moved to Vanderbilt. He was one of the ones who started the global warming scenario. He met Al Gore and taught him and Al Gore went out to make millions. But then years later, Dr. Ramirez went to Washington, D.C. to inform Al Gore, that his calculations were wrong. But Al Gore was making so much money that he refused to see Dr. Ramirez. So therefore, in fact, you could actually go and Google it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here today, Jerry. Appreciate your time. Our next speaker is going to be Russell Trask. Mr. Trask, if you'd please come up here and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes, and we certainly appreciate you spending your time here today, sir.
Thank you. My name is Russell Trask. I'm a carpenter. My father was a carpenter. My God is a carpenter. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about the beginning of this country. Tyranny. Cruel and oppressive government or rule. In 1650, Retired Trask landed in Salem, Mass., fleeing tyranny from England. My ancestors have a history of fighting for the United States' freedom from England, fighting against slavery. And this generation stands with them to fight against tyranny and mob rule. And my method of fighting, right here, ballot. That's what we were given. That's what I will use. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. You have a good day as well. Our next speaker is going to be Keith Van Heineken. Mr. Van Heineken, please come forward. You did submit 2 cards, one for a call to the public and one for agenda item 13. Agenda item 13 is not a hearing. You are perfectly welcome to make comments about item number 13 during your 3 minutes at call to the audience, sir. And you need to give us your name for the record. And as I said, you have 3 minutes. Mr. King, are you going to speak for him today?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you helping out.
I am Chris King. I am going to be reading Mr. Van Heineken's statement.
Very good.
All right. I don't know if that suffices or not.
Fine with me.
Okay, thank you. So for everyone 45 and under, grab 2 of your friends close and wonder, where is the 4th of you? That's the ghost standing next to you. If you're over 63 years old and you're directly responsible for those 60 million dead Americans through your apathy and hate, where do you think your morals and tax base went? What's the Democrat Party platform again? Oh, here it is. Baby killing, ghetto masters, open borders, kill America movement, atheism, socialism. Gosnell was a mass murderer and an abortionist. When does Mexico stop flooding Arizona with feces and urine? Literally, feces and urine. I hear how racist America is. Show me. I hear how homophobic America is. Show me. I hear how sexist America is. Show me. I hear how hateful America is. Show me. I hear how it's for the children. Show me. I show you abortion. And Keith asked a favor of the Board of Supervisors. Can you make me a Mars balloon for my ashes when I get there? As far as addressing agenda item 13, the 2018 Sustainable Action Plan for county operations. First off, how much in taxpayer rate dollars is this going to be? Secondly, Paris is burning. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Heineken. Appreciate you being here with us today. Have a good day. Our next speaker is going to be Gary Knox. Mr. Knox, if you'd come forward, please, and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes, and we appreciate you spending your time here with us today.
Good morning. My name is Gary Knox. I'm going to talk about economics and the government. The thing about Pima County is they seem to be a high-tax government, 2 to 3 times higher than Maricopa County. And what this does, it makes us a socialist government. I've been to socialist countries like Venezuela, Greece, Soviet Union. Soviet Union was socialism on steroids. They provided for the masses, did everything, hunky-dory for everybody. They even run hot water to individual houses so that people have hot water. Well, you know what happened to the Soviet Union in the 1990s? So what I'm talking about is this government here always votes for high taxes. Huckleberry, Ellis, Valadez, and Bronson.
Elias.
Who?
Elias. That's my name, not Ellis.
Sorry.
Just wanted to make it right.
And what I want is prosperity for everybody. I'm nonpartisan because I vote for people that understand economics and what the John Q. public out there is paying in taxes. And if he pays a lot of taxes, what happens is they have less money to spend. And the companies around the area don't make out as well because they're paying more high taxes. So the government, does things to the people to make them worse off. And what I'm talking about is that businesses struggle. Even down in Maricopa County, which taxes are half to a third as much as they are here, they actually send down guys and work out of their house because they can go 110 miles down here and still make a profit and get a better deal than you can people here in Pima County. Now, the reason you get people to vote for you is because of, you want to help people. I understand that. But when you help people, like throw a few crumbs at the people, that 200,000 people that are below the poverty line, they have a tendency of voting for you. And businesses have to pay more or charge more for their stuff, so they are out. Now, a perception is like when you go and say roads are no good, they're falling apart and you don't have enough money. You get plenty of money. I've seen it. You give $15 million to a spaceport and you pay almost $1 million for a church in a floodplain. That's only appraised at $650,000. Rio Negro.
Your time has expired, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Bruce Plank, I think it says. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. If you'd give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Elias and members of the board. My name is Bruce Plank. I live in Tucson. And I wanted to thank the board and Mr. Huckleberry for proposing and hopefully adopting the continuation of the Sustainable Action Plan. I think it's great. I think that Pima County has really established itself as a leader in sustainability, and I think it's very impressive that you're continuing the progress that has been made since the first Sustainable Action Plan was adopted. Pima County has recognized the extremely huge challenge of climate change and is responding accordingly. I think it's particularly helpful and important that the plan has specific goals, targets, and monitoring built in. I think it's important that the county is supporting the goals of the Paris Agreement. And as a board member of Tucson Community Gardens, I'm particularly happy to see that the Sustainable Action Plan supports community gardens along with many other good things. So I want to give all of you a big thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Bruce. Our next speaker is going to be Jean Zwick-Sherritt. Ms. Sherritt, thank you for being here today. And as you make your way over here, please remember to give us your name for the record. And you have 3 minutes to address the board. And we won't start the clock until you get up here because
Thank you. They take me a minute being
it's a long
short
walk.
person.
No, just bend it down for you. It's a pretty good mic. It'll pick you up.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Elias and board. I'm here today to speak to what I believe to be an infringement and restriction of my First Amendment rights to free speech and the right to peaceful assembly. On October 5th at around noon, I was part of a group rallying at Jeff Flake's office on Oracle Road. We were there to urge Senator Flake to vote no on the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. We were exercising our First Amendment right that protects freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly. Freedom of expression is a fundamental right in our country and assures the ability to express our opinion and to do so without government interference. On this day, October 5th, 2018, we were protesting nonviolently in front of Senator Flake's office outside of the plaza. We were restricted from parking in the plaza where Senator Flake's office was. We were denied access to Senator Flake's office except for groups of 5 by a private security company. The group of less than 100 was rallying peacefully, gathered in front of the walls around the plaza. After peacefully protesting and abiding by the security officers and their restrictions, we were surprised suddenly when approximately 4 to 5 Sheriff's Department SUVs with lights and sirens and 8 deputies arrived on scene. They quickly dispersed among and around the protesters. Having been to over 60 rallies since August of 2016, never have I ever seen anger demonstrated by several of the public safety officers. Their behavior appeared to be disproportionate to the situation. I should point out that not all officers demonstrated this inappropriate behavior. However, things quickly escalated to deputies shouting confusing directions. At one point, a deputy was heard to call out to the demonstrators that we were anarchists. Excuse me. The only violence was demonstrated by those who were to be protecting our right to free speech and assembly. There was no intention to incite or have a confrontation with safety officers by the protesters. We were relying on our First Amendment rights that one or more can assemble without fear from the government that we were a mob. At this time, we were given confusing directions from the deputies to disperse to different areas in front of the plaza. Some of us believed that this was restricting our ability to free assembly and freely speak our minds peacefully. Soon after, I was arrested and was being walked to an area inside the plaza to receive a citation for trespassing. I could see behind me clearly a very angry female officer push a demonstrator aggressively backward. This demonstrated anger began to make me feel afraid of the deputies. While the officer was beginning to write my citation for trespassing, which I strongly disagree with, another officer appeared and very angrily said he would take over. At this time, he started cursing and swearing as he was unable to correctly fill out the citation. This made me feel very uncomfortable and scared for my safety. Thankfully,
you've gone over your allotted time. I'm sorry. So I'm going to have to ask you to please complete your comments very quickly.
Okay. So I was afraid. And the officers told us that the reason they did not have enough officers to control the crowd, which was acting peacefully. As he was still demonstrating anger, I chose to remain silent, but wondered why
Okay.
it was taking
I'm
two
sorry,
officers.
you've gone over a whole minute. I need to
Okay.
make sure that you're
I
cut off.
have one
But
request of you, may I ask it? And then I will be finished. Just one last request.
I've asked you already, we've let you go over a minute. What I would ask you to do is to please bring your request to the clerk, and we'll consider it. And also, Captain Thiel from the Pima County Sheriff's Office is at the back of the room. If you'd like to make a complaint, I believe he'd be more than willing to talk to you about anything that transpired there. But I apologize to you. We've been having a lot of trouble with call to the audience, so we are trying to be very strict with
And
our
I
rules.
apologize back. When I practiced at home, I stayed under 3 minutes, so I was just a little nervous.
You've written the comments, though, ma'am. You've written the comments.
you can submit 'em to us.
to the clerk, and we'll post them online.
Okay, I hope you can read that.
Very good, thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Kristen Randall. Kristen, if you'd please come forward, and you know the routine, give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Kristen Randall, and I'm a resident of District 2. I have friends who have lost loved ones due to terrible traffic accidents, some of them being cross-median crashes. Hey, this didn't start at 3 minutes.
Sorry about that. I apologize, we got a little mixed up.
That's okay.
We'll make sure and cut you off after 2. No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I think I see what's happening here. And yet ADOT is stubbornly clinging to its outdated and unsupported position that these barriers do not reduce fatalities. Last week's article by Joe Ferguson really resonated with me, as it's a story of a grieving man's 10-year crusade to save lives after the loss of his wife and his sister. I'd like to thank Supervisor Christie for requesting that ADOT reconsider its position on refusing to install these. Many cross-median collisions are preventable, and we can see traffic, as we see traffic increase on our highways, we're going to see these fatalities increase as well. I'm grateful that Supervisor Christie is always in support of evidence-based studies on road safety, and I'd like to ask that he do more. The Pinal County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution in September officially asking ADOT to make I-10 safer and to identify and implement all appropriate safety countermeasures on the highway. And Casa Grande Mayor Craig McFarland also wrote a letter in support of investigating the feasibility of safety measures such as cable barriers. I'm asking that the Pima County Supervisors join this movement to ask ADOT to keep our motorists safe and to pass a resolution asking for ADOT to reconsider their position against cable barriers and other safety measures on I-10 and on I-19, which also has some issues with cross-median fatalities. So thank you very much for that letter. It meant a lot. And also, I would like to mention that Maricopa County has a property tax rate of 0.8%. So if Pima County were to have a rate that was 2 to 3 times that amount, that would mean our property tax rate would be 1.6 or 2.4%. It is not. Pima County's property tax rate is 1.0%, which is only 0.2% more than Maricopa County. The average tax rate nationally is 1.2%, so we're well below the national property tax average. I'd also like to say that sales tax, not including municipal sales tax, Maricopa County is 6.3% and Pima County is 6.1%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. Quick with the math there, that's really interesting. Our next speaker is going to be Ryan Kelly. Mr. Kelly, if you'd come forward, please, and give us your name for the record. And thank you very much for spending your time here with us. Well, I would say that you have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, thanks as always.
We'll start the clock right for you.
All right, and thank you, Board. I have a few things I'd like to discuss this morning. First, I had the pleasure of attending the Pima County Workforce Investment Board meeting on Friday morning. And aside from a couple of great announcements, such as the Tucson Indian Center finally being fully staffed, despite one of our supervisors' opposition to funding that important work. And this is exciting, the creation of a $600,000 eviction prevention fund through the Pima County One Stop, which I think is fantastic. I was overall surprised and disappointed just how removed a majority of the 45-member appointed Workforce Investment Board seemed when it came to understanding the everyday struggles of working families in our county. And so I don't know who appointed who, but I would just like to make a note of that and take that into account. 45 people, that's a lot of appointments, so maybe we can do better. I'd also like to take a moment to inquire about the process of acceptance of the law enforcement grant that's on today's agenda. Now, I don't know enough about it to have an opinion one way or another, but I'm a little confused with the process. Is it not the job of the Community Law Enforcement Partnership Commission to discuss such grants? So just a little clarification there would be good. And then finally, very quickly, I'd like to take the opportunity to say my support for Prop 463. It's not often that Jim Click, the Tucson Metro Chamber, and Supervisor Christie and myself agree on something. This actually may be a first, but hey, I'll acknowledge it when it's true. That's all I've got for you this morning, so have a good day.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Janie Simmer. Janie, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. And please give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Supervisors. I'm Janie Simner, and I just wanted to briefly thank the board for its proposed Sustainable Action Plan. It was moving to the desert with its limited resources more than 2 decades ago that made me appreciate the importance of protecting our environment. Reducing our carbon footprint and looking into more sustainable energy sources is a powerful investment in our future and in our quality of life over the long term. And ultimately, it's good for business too. Having a livable city is something that I believe more and more over time will draw businesses to Tucson. So I just wanted to say thank you for your commitment to our community and our future, and I hope to see that plan approved. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Our next speaker is going to be Chris King. Mr. King, if you please step forward and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, Supervisors. I am Chris King, taxpayer of Tucson and Pima County. You admit you don't care about what we, the taxpayer, have to say, yet you espouse that you will not tolerate race-related comments. Yet, you have yet to apologize for your racist comments towards the men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol. Then you seek to appoint a known anti-law enforcement, racially charged candidate to the Community Law Enforcement Partnership Commission. It's kind of sad. Now, to why I'm really here. I am the chairman of the Stop Prop 463 campaign, also known as the Unaffordable Pima County Road Bonds Act, or Huckle Care. You sit up there as the bullet of oligarchs instead of supervisors. You blatantly lie and fearmonger to the taxpayers by saying Prop 463 is not a tax increase, and say that this is the last chance to fix our roads when they didn't get this way overnight. You blatantly admit to laundering money without fear of admonishment. You have a lot of nerve to sit and ask for $430 million in a bond when you have $62 million left to issue from the 1997 road bonds that should have already been used for roads and repaid since this was approved 21 years ago. Furthermore, you want to spend $5.8 million on 2 bridges under the guise of flood control, yet you turn down federal grant money to support our county law enforcement? Have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey and his baby steps? Try it. You'll find out that it works. Lastly, you want Pima County to adopt and abide by the mandates of the Paris Climate Accord. This is not a surprise, because it will allow you to do as other nations would do to the U.S., bilk the taxpayers of the county without making any tangible or meaningful effects. You are like a dirty diaper and need to be changed. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. We appreciate you spending your time here with us. And our next speaker is going to be Arlene Benavides. Ms. Benavides, please come forward. And you have 3 minutes. If you would give us your name for the record, and we certainly appreciate you spending your time here with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Arlene Benavides. I'm with the Metropolitan Education Commission, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak with you. The MEC was established by Pima County and City of Tucson in 1992 to serve as a commission on education. Our core function is to advocate for all levels of education, preschool to college, and to make recommendations to our county, city, and community leaders. Today, I'm here to represent our 34-member Citizen Commission and to present you with the Metropolitan Education Commission's resolution on education funding, pre-kindergarten to post-secondary. Whereas the Metropolitan Education Commission, or MEC, a nonprofit corporation, serves in the advisory role on education to the Tucson Mayor Council and Pima County Board of Supervisors, and whereas the MEC is composed of representatives from pre-kindergarten to post-secondary education organizations and institutions, business, social services, government, and youth, and whereas the MEC recognizes that the importance of the upcoming election with regard to setting a child-centered, student-focused, and future-oriented direction for our community and state. Whereas mindful of our purpose as an organization and cognizant of the potential impact of the electorate's decisions on the well-being of the children and youth we serve, we want our community to know where we stand as their education advocates. Whereas the statistics regarding the well-being of children and youth in Pima County, the city of Tucson, and the state of Arizona are well known, the upcoming election represents a unique and ideal opportunity for our citizens to send a clear and resounding message to our elected officials about what our priorities should be on education. And whereas although there are clearly other needs besides those outlined in this statement, we feel that addressing these concerns will get our community and state on the proper course. Thus, we encourage the Pima County Board of Supervisors and the City of Tucson Council to adopt similar resolutions in support of education funding. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the members of the Metropolitan Education Commission state our position on education as follows. Although we cannot endorse candidates, the MEC encourages city and county elected officials and community leaders to work together with the Arizona legislators and governor's office to support public education by avoiding any further diversion of revenue from Arizona's public schools through support of expansion of school vouchers, also known as empowerment scholarship accounts, by providing the funding needed to support high-quality pre-kindergarten, early childhood education, and child care in every city and town throughout our state, starting by ensuring that the state immediately access all available federal funds for child care assistance and prioritize using any new dollars
Arlene,
to increase reimbursement.
You've
Okay.
extended your 3 minutes out,
Okay,
please.
thank you. May I give you copies?
Please give us
Okay.
copies and submit one to the clerk of the
Okay.
board so that they can add it to the record.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much for your time. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is going to be Barbara Warren. Barbara, I don't see you here. Oh, there you are. I'm not saying you're short or anything. I appreciate you being here, and if you'd give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to comment to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you very much. I'm here on behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility, and I did not have prepared comments. I wanted to thank the board and the county for the wonderful sustainability plan that's been prepared to address making a lot of progressive changes in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Appreciate you doing that. Our next speaker is going to be Ivy Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz, if you please come forward and give us your name for the record. And you know the routine. You have 3 minutes to address the board.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm Ivy Schwartz. I live in Tucson. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak today. Thank you very much, Mr. Huckleberry and staff, members of the board. This is a letter from the Tucson Mountains Association that I'm going to read, and I have copies for the clerk. In support of the Resolution 2018-66. The recently released special report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warns that without urgent action by humanity, the Earth faces serious climate impacts as early as 2040 through mass die-offs of coral reefs, widespread drought, famine, wildfires, and potential conflicts over land, food, and water. Our local region, including the Tucson Mountains, is being severely affected by global warming, and the expected damage to both the near and far future is a cost far too great to ignore. The IPCC report makes clear that strong action must begin during the next 10 years to avoid catastrophe. It is critical that the U.S. take leadership in these efforts. The Tucson Mountains Association applauds Resolution 2018-66 to be considered by the Board of Supervisors at the October 16 meeting. We urge all supervisors to vote for this resolution to implement the county's Sustainable Action Plan. While specifically reducing the county's contributions to global warming, this plan importantly leads by example. Similar plans must be implemented across the United States, both in government and in the private sector. Therefore, we urge the county to go further by A, working with the private sector and other governments to implement sustainability plans, and B, promoting legislation to limit greenhouse gas emissions, and C, educating the public in the need for strong action to mitigate climate change. Sincerely, Dr. Peter Chesson, President, Tucson Mountains Association. Since I have 49 seconds, I'd like to add a couple of points for myself, which are, after reading the plan, that I urge the county to work really hard for the departments to work in an integrated fashion to get out of their silos and work together on this. I think that's exceedingly important for there to be real progress. And in addition to that, I think there need to be quantitative goals in the plan, or more quantitative goals than there are in the plan, in order to measure progress against those goals on a yearly basis. Thanks so very much for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, appreciate it. Our next speaker is going to be Brenda Wexler. Ms. Wexler, if you'd come forward, please, and give us your name for the record, and appreciate your patience and the time you spend with us today. And you brought nice roses.
Yes, I brought roses for you. I just wanted to thank you for voting down the sheriff's funds and reducing the fear in our community. So here are a dozen roses for five of you. And Mr. Christie, you can figure out who gets the extra two. And I want to say that I wasn't planning to say this until this lady came up about what happened to her when she was arrested for free speech. This year I was arrested in D.C. My fine was $50. I was arrested with 675 other people for family separation. It's my understanding, I could be wrong, that her fine is almost $750 or up to $700. What does that say about the Sheriff's Department and our community about free speech? I will leave it as a rhetorical question. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Appreciate the flowers. Thank you very much. Why don't we pat them over here and we'll put them over there. That way they're out of your way. That's a first. I don't think the Board of Supervisors has ever received flowers from anybody during a board meeting. I think we've offered flowers to each other, but I don't think we've ever gotten flowers from anybody. So I'm touched by that. Thank you, Ms. Wexler. Our next speaker is going to be Rosemary Bolta. Rosemary, thank you for being here and being patient. I know it's a long process and it gets hard sometimes, but we appreciate you being patient, and you have 3 minutes, and please give us your name for the record.
My name is Rosemary Bolsa. I'm reading a statement from Felicia Chu. She's unable to be here. She's out educating our young people substituting at Amphi. And she does have 1,000 petitions. She has got signatures in order to save this Golden Pin bowling alley. The community is hopeful that they could work out a way to lease the building and continue to operate it as a bowling alley, because that does bring in money to the neighborhood and the city. They do have tournaments there. It also is a wonderful space for cooling, and this weekend it was used for people to get out of the rain also. So she asks that you consider the request to lease the building and keep the bowl so that we may continue to do the work to build relationship and revitalize the community. And for myself, I was retired after 30 years in the U.S. Public Health Service. And looking at this issue from a public health point of view, I think it's very important to balance things that are healing and fun and serve the community with I think one of the needs for the space was for a juvenile court. So it is necessary to have mechanisms to enforce the laws and create public safety, but I'm hoping that the County Board of Supervisors could really work with this committed group to work on how they can revitalize their community, how they can heal, and have safe laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Appreciate you being here. Our next speaker is going to be Hanson Votherby. Oh, there you are. Thank you for coming, sir. Appreciate your patience and the time that you spent with us today. If you'd give us your name for the record, you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Hanson Votherby. I'll try not to go over 3 minutes. I've been up here several times talking about the Golden Pin Lanes, trying to protect it from closing. It is nice that I've been given the opportunity to speak in a democracy. However, I get the feeling coming up here that it's just being ignored, and other people who's talking about the same thing are just being ignored and waiting for the opposition to just die out. I have not mentioned it yet, but I am a registered Democrat. I started out as a volunteer wanting to help the city in the Miracle Mile area, and the city's government is controlled by Democrats, and I just wanted to do something to better Tucson. It was these Democrats who've argued for years to protect the historic buildings and signs of the Miracle Mile and convinced me that the area's history is important for Tucson. At this important moment when the historic Golden Pin Lanes is about to be closed, city officials say nothing. And during the time I have been coming to this board meetings, I've been hearing that a Democratic-controlled board of supervisors wasted money on a golf course after the voters there told them not to do so, extended support and money on a nonprofit that has caused a lot of damage to businesses and homes, neglected roads that have not been maintained, refused the government grant that they had been taking for years, put out an exorbitant sum of money for this bowling center to close it when it is making money and paying thousands of dollars in tax revenues, as well as now overpaying an administrator with a six-figure salary who has been involved in these aforementioned dubious transactions. And all of this somehow seems to have something to do with fighting Trump, if I am to believe what I'm hearing when I listen to Democratic responses. To me, the reason I am a Democrat is that I feel it is the party that champions poor citizens. But none of what I have been hearing that has occurred is helping poor people. If you want to fight Trump, the best way for Democrats who control a county to do so should be to concentrate on running a good county. This includes do not waste money or go into debt. The way this drama is transpiring, I am one Democrat, and you should pay attention to this because I am a Democrat, that I'm going to be voting in the next election that comes up and trying hard to convince other people to be voting to remove all the present Democrats and their administrative hireling off of the Board of Supervisors in the next elections. Sorry to be nasty, but that's how I feel.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your comments. Our next speaker is going to be Sandra Wong. Ms. Wong, if you'd please come forward and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, I'm Sandra Wong, and I was here last month addressing you about Golden Pin Lanes, speaking to the social value of the facility. And today I've handed the clerk a proposal as to how I think we can make everybody happy and working together for a good solution. And that would be to actually use some of that 4.66 acres that you've purchased and actually start immediately on construction of a new 3-story building. And that would allow you to have your office spaces. There's enough parking to accommodate everything. Your parking would actually even be deconflicted. And I think you could actually do a real nice win-win or mutually beneficial solution in that you have a new building. You get to decide what you put in it, how you lay it out. You could also start immediately. Like I said, it's vacant land. Right now it's parking lot land right now. And I think that you could also look into using spaces within Golden Pin, even though it operates as a bowling alley. You could convert part of that into a daycare. You could continue using the kitchen, use it for your food service, help with the training of some of the people that you want to assist in that office space. You could even have work share programs with all the mechanisms inside a bowling alley. You need mechanics there. You have customer service positions. I think you have a real good potential work share space that you should consider doing. And I think you also have the possibility of doing this for the same cost or maybe even a little bit less than the $4 million that we're looking at for the renovation of the old building. A building built in 1959. And every time I watch Property Brothers, I see a really bad renovation because there's something comes up. And it's like, oh my God, where are we going to find the money for that? If you have a new building, you wouldn't have to worry about that. You're in control of it. You're building it with the state-of-the-art materials. You're using better insulation. So I think that's something to really consider. You could lease out the center, and you could also use the money that you would use for that lease and put it towards the programs that are going to be in that building. Again, I think this is mutually beneficial for all of us. I want to share a couple stories. One, similar to what you've just heard, the center is used as a safe haven. Last Friday, I saw a woman who was being harassed on the street, and she actually went into Golden Pin just to escape from him. Luckily, she had a place to go, and I'm glad she had that place to go. I know other homeless people use it, and I wanted to share that there's lots of people that are not fully physically able that are there. And I actually got to watch some blind bowlers the other day, and they were having the best time. To see them smiling and laughing, how can you turn that down? I'd really like you to think about that. In closing, this is just a proposal. It's a starting point. I think we could work together and really come up with something great for the community and for the county with similar costs. And I think in today's environment with heated and sometimes
Sorry,
violent...
you've gone over your 3 minutes.
Okay, just one statement? Okay.
Very, very quickly.
In today's environment with heated and sometimes violent exchanges, we need to keep our cherished community resources open to make new friends and build stronger relationships.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience. Our next speaker is going to be Carol Kovalik. Thank you for being here, Ms. Kovalik. We appreciate your time and your patience. And please give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Good morning, supervisors and staff, and as you yourself, Supervisor Elias, corrected, it's Kovalik.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Kovalik.
I'm here this morning for some other things, but I'd also like to make a comment, and I hope that earlier today, your comment about not caring about what we have to say, I hope that you will step back from that when you were giving
I
the
misspoke, and I
introduction.
corrected it.
Yes. And so that's not the case of, disregarding my comments here. But I am here to recognize a recent major roadwork project completion that was done within the county. And, we hear a lot of bad stuff. We hear a lot about fix the roads, fix this, fix that. I'm here to tell you that as a citizen of Pima County, I have actually witnessed some improvements to the roadways, specifically within Miss Miller and Mr. Christie's districts. At Snyder Road, east and west, the whole road was repaired. It wasn't a patch job that was done terribly last year just prior to El Tour de Tucson. And then Old Soldier Trail, north and south, completely from approximately Fort Lowell all the way up past Snyder. These are two major roadways in that district, and they are recently done. Curb to curb, total replacement. There was also some east of Agua Caliente Park. It's in a community out there, larkspur, fir, fireweed, and hemlock. These are community roads that are within a subdivision, and these roads were also repaired curb to curb, fully paved. So I want people to know we're not done. We are making progress. There's a lot more to do, but this is something that was seen and appreciated on that side of town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just to make sure my comments are not misconstrued, because I did misspeak, I don't particularly care what political perspective you have. You're welcome to come and speak and say anything you want, as long as it's respectful and follows the guidelines that we discussed this morning. So thank you for pointing that out, but I did misspeak. Our next speaker is going to be Nicole Gilbert. Thank you for being here. Please state your name for the record, and appreciate your patience, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Of course, I have terrible handwriting. It's Nicole Gillette. And
I'm sorry.
Yes, but that's my handwriting. I'm with the Tucson Audubon Society here in Tucson, and I'm here to speak in support of item number 13. And I also have a letter from the Community Water Coalition of Southern Arizona, so I'm speaking for both today in support of this. We appreciate the county's efforts to continue to work towards the Paris Climate Agreement. And the one thing we would request is during the annual review process, which the county does, that there is some public input in that. We would be happy to help review and support any further efforts. So if that could be included, we would greatly appreciate that. And I can submit this letter, which includes that.
Once you finish.
That request. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Okay, our next speaker is Greg Garfin. Mr. Garfin, if you'd please come forward and give us your name for the record. You have 3 minutes. We appreciate your patience here today, sir.
My name is Greg Garfin. Good morning, Chairman Elias and Board of Supervisors. As a resident of Pima County, I'm honored to have the opportunity to make brief remarks in support of the Sustainable Action Plan for County Operations. I'm a lead author of the Southwest chapter in the 4th National Climate Assessment, which is scheduled to be released in December 2018. I'll point out that the plan notes the risks of adverse consequences of climate change to Pima County. These include consequences to our economy, environment, infrastructure, and public health. To me, the plan is reasonable, and it makes incremental improvements in actions, targets, and performance measures that build upon the efforts and innovations in the 2008 and 2014 Sustainable Action Plans. The plan relies strongly on multiple benefits of the strategies planned so that they will align with short timescale efforts such as decreasing landfill wastes, and with economic and social benefits such as improved food security and public health. These strategies make sense, and they make even more sense given the realities of climate change. The plan keeps Pima County moving in a direction to reduce adverse risks of climate change. On October 8th, a report of international scientists pointed out dire consequences to the planet and its people if we do not take strong measures to reduce the amount to which the planet warms. Much of the media focus has been on the dire consequences. However, the report also points out the additional economic and environmental benefits of limiting the amount to which the planet warms. Through the Sustainable Action Plan, Pima County reduces adverse effects and increases the benefits associated with limiting planetary warming and preparing for changes to our local environment. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time here. Our next speaker is James Masilio, I believe. Sorry if I got it wrong, Doctor, but please come forward and correct me and give us your 3 minutes, please, and state your name for the record. Okay.
Name is James Machula. I spoke here a few weeks ago about the golden pin, and I first would like to thank the board for listening. I would also talk to some of my colleagues in the county health departments, and I thank you for the commitment to the health of the community. I think talking to them, it's a great service you're going to be doing by adding the new facilities. The concern I still have, though, is I don't know how many of you ever worked construction. I did as in high school and a little in college to pay for things. I can tell you a 59-year-old building that you're going to go and renovate is still going to be connected to the new plumbing, the new electricity, to 59-year-old crap. It is a concern. A new building, I like this plan. A new building on the area, there's a lot of land there, a lot of parking, seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, I worked at the university for years, and Banner's taken it over, and they didn't remodel that thing. They built a brand new hospital right next to it. And I think that's, you know, talking to the financial people there, they looked at it and said, it's what's going to make the people come and go there and make their business work. I worry that you put all your facilities in a building that's renovated, that's that old, you put all your eggs in that basket. If something breaks, all of the work that you're doing in public health and community services is going to be on hold. A new building is something that, you know, you start now and you could do. And if you need to take over part of the building, great. But I think you can separate certain of your facilities, as I mentioned before, so they're not all integrated in the same place. So I think the idea of a new building is something that, yes, it may be more costly at first, but you're talking something that if this building is lasted 59 years, it may not last another 59. You build a new building, you got 59 years of guaranteed. So I would look at that proposal very, very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, that concludes call to the audience. We have a couple items on executive session.
Move to convene in exec.
Second. Motion and a second to convene in exec. We're going to do that following a break that we take. It's now 10:30, so we have two items. Shouldn't be too long. We'll be back in about 15 minutes, but the meeting will be restored at the sound of the gavel. I'd like to call back to order the October 16, 2018 meeting of the Pima County Board of Supervisors. We've been in executive session. Council, please.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the first executive session item on the addendum concerns a proposed settlement in a condemnation case, Pima County versus Harbor et al., Pima County Superior Court case number C20180802. The County Attorney's Office and Real Property Services recommends that the board authorize the settlement as discussed in executive session.
Move the county attorney's recommendation.
Motion and a second to approve the county attorney's recommendation in Superior Court case number 201-80802. Discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Council, please.
Mr. Chairman, the second executive session item on the addendum concerns the response on behalf of Pima County, that is the board as a whole, to the letter from the Arizona Attorney General's Office dated September 20th, 2018 regarding an open meeting law complaint. The County Attorney's Office recommends that we proceed as discussed in executive session.
Move the county attorney's recommendation.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the county attorney's recommendation. Discussion? Objections?
I object.
One objection for Supervisor Miller. So the motion carries 4-1. Very good. We're on to back to the regular agenda, and on page 3, Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards, Flood Control District boards, items 9, 10, and 11.
If no one wishes to divide the question, I'll move those items.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to divide the question and vote on item 10, have a separate discussion and vote on item 10.
Move items 9 and 11.
Second. A motion and a second to approve items 9 and 11. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 10.
Move the item.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions on this one. This is the El Corazon Bank Protection, and we've spent $6 million on this project already. Previous years, I think in 2013 was the bulk of it, close to $4 million. And this is for adding a couple of bridges to the bike path for another additional $5.8 million. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair and Supervisor Miller, the original acquisition of $4 million was when we acquired the property from Cal Portland, and that was about an 800-acre acquisition. This particular project is mostly for bank stabilization around the existing historic pit that lines the Santa Cruz River and is between the junction of the Cañada del Oro and the Rito. And that's most of all of this work. There's 2 bridges that are in it that will be part of the loop system, but they're a minor part of the cost. Anytime the county puts in bank stabilization adjacent to the river system, the Section 404 permit requirement of the Corps requires a river park mitigation measure, and so that's also in part of this. If this bank protection, obviously, it's an erosion protection measure that keeps the Santa Cruz River or the Rito or the Cañada del Oro from interacting with the pit. If there was a breach in that pit today, it would endanger the bridge structures on Interstate 10 and the railroad structures. And so the $5.8 million, which is a low bid, is essentially a major flood control bank stabilization project.
Okay, I did see that cost was, from prior years was, okay, so that was for acquisition. And then the bridges are $1.2 million for the 2 bridges if you add up. I've got the costs that they've identified for the bridge, the pads, the assembly, steel, et cetera. So that comes to about, well, actually closer to $1.3 million for the 2 bridges. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Any further discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're on to the consent calendar, sitting as the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
I'd like to pull item number 4 for separate discussion and vote.
Mr. Chairman, I move the remainder of the consent.
Second. Thank you, Supervisor Bronson. We have a motion and a second to approve consent with the exclusion of item 4. Discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 4.
I'll move the item.
A second. We have a motion and a second. Supervisor Miller.
On this one, this is for a project called the Bike Barometer, and it is for a piece of public art for $130,000. The question I have on this one is that this is being funded out of the wastewater department for public art. Why is that coming out of the wastewater?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the wastewater department has the same obligations as any other public works department constructing a facility within Pima County, and so they are not exempt from the 1% public art set aside. They have in the past decorated manhole lids, and so, you know, I guess if you can drive slow enough, you can see the public art in the manhole lid. But this is really using their funding obligations to comply with the county policy and the board policy on public art in a more useful product, which actually is really trying to measure utilization, data utilization with regard to the loop system.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any objections? One objection noted for Supervisor Miller. Motion carries 4-1. We're on to item 13, County Administrator 2018 Sustainable Action Plan for Pima County Operations. Resolution 2018-66 is included. Chair will move the item.
Second.
I have a card that was submitted by Kathy Jacobs, and I appreciate you coming down here, Kathy, to speak to us, but you know, this item is not a hearing, and we did have a number of folks who spoke to us during call to the audience in favor of the Sustainable Action Plan. So I thank you for coming down here, but we've had a lot of difficulties with call to the audience, and getting our audience to go along with the rules has been difficult. So I'm going to ask you to abide by them as well. Thank you very much for your time, though. I appreciate it. Okay, item 13, I would also add that, you know, I think it would be a good idea, as one of our speakers spoke earlier today, and we've had several calls in the District 5 office, to include a citizen's review of the action plan after 1 year that's called for in the actual plan itself. And I think it's appropriate that we have some feedback from the public on this particular action as it continues to go forward. What I would do is amend my motion to include that we add a citizens committee at the end of 1 year when we conclude this, when we begin the review, I should say, more accurately, begin the review of our sustainable action plan with 5 members, one appointed from each of the members of the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chair,
I would ask the maker of the second to approve it first.
I'll second. I'm concerned, though, if we're just as citizens, because I think we also need some experts. Mr. Huckleberry is indicating as a...
Mr. Huckleberry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What I would also suggest is that you have a number of in-place committees or commissions. For example, the Department of Environmental Quality, your advisory committee there. This sustainable plan touches many departments and agencies, and such as the Transportation Advisory Committee and the others, and Flood Control Advisory Committee. They're somewhat related, so you can also refer it to those committees as well for review.
And they have the expertise, so that works.
So you want to have each one of those committees that he mentioned make a comment on?
As well as the citizens, yeah.
As well as a citizens group?
Yeah.
Okay. Supervisor Christie?
I'm just making sure I'm clear on this. This is
please
after this resolution is discussed and voted upon. You're advancing the idea that a committee be formed to monitor the progress of it over and above and outside of this meeting?
To review.
At the end of the year.
At the end of 1 year, to review what has transpired and see how it's working.
So nobody will be talking to that point during this meeting?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And then Mr. Huckleberry has suggested that we take it to the Flood Control Advisory Committee, the Environmental Quality Advisory Committee. What was the third one, Chuck?
Mr. Chairman, I think there are many, and so we can add some, like the wastewater advisory. The whole issue of water reuse and treatment and minimization of waste is in their purview as well.
Okay, if you could put that in a memo to us and advising us also when is a good time to make our appointments to that commission or to a committee that would review it. It's not really a commission, a little different, okay? Everybody okay with that? Understand it? Supervisor Miller?
Mr. Chairman, as I read through this, there's a reason that we withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords, and it's because of the sheer cost of implementing this. And that's one thing that, we're talking about avoided costs. There's various items in the memo that Mr. Huckleberry put out. But we've had, from various departments, and I think I counted up at least 10 or 15 different managers of these departments, 50 internal meetings already just to come up with the plan. And then we're talking about all of these various initiatives, electric cars, et cetera, et cetera. The cost of this is going to, we're already the highest tax county in the state, and now we're going to cause more costs to be incurred on the part of the county, and nothing is for free. This money's got to come from somewhere. And we're talking about all of these various savings, one of them on page 2 at the top. It says more than 14 million saved in avoided costs, but without any documentation or report to show where were those monies saved. And we're talking about an increase in the beneficial use of the wastewater biogas since 2008. Where is that data? I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the summary of the $14 million that we saved in avoided costs. And everybody knows that to implement this, it's going to be a huge cost to the taxpayers. And I see that later on we're going to be voting on some zoning changes that implement more onerous requirements on homeowners as they build their homes, one of them making their home solar ready, whether they intend to do that or not. And it says low cost, but no one's got an actual estimate or a cost of what that's going to cost the home builders. These things are all very concerning. I'm all for let's do things the most efficient, energy efficient, but we've got to look at the trade-offs in terms of costs, and I don't see that anywhere here. I just see these numbers being tossed around that say, oh, we're going to save 14 million without any documentation. It's avoided costs. And that's all I see in here, but we've had 50 internal meetings already with a list of, management that's about 20 people. I'd like to know what the cost was for coming up with this plan and then to implement it as you go through it. We're going to actually comply with the Paris Climate Accords. 2016, our CO2 emissions in Pima County, per this report, are 133,415. And by 2025, we've agreed we're now going to go to 78,000. That isn't going to happen for free. And fostering employee climate preparedness, food production, looking at all of these things, it's all nice to look at and all nice to see, but the costs of this, I don't see a nice summary or how many hours we're expecting these various departments. Protecting cultural heritage is a part of this. Fostering a healthy and beautiful community. These are all things that we should be doing, all of us as individual citizens, but there's a reason that our economy is booming now, because a lot of these onerous regulations were removed and the economy is moving forward. And my concern is they aren't doing this up north. Their property tax rates are already lower than ours. what are we doing to our economy even further? Thank you.
Supervisor Christie.
Looking at the resolution itself, it says in 2017, following the United States withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, this board passed the resolution 2017-39, which committed Pima County to remove its participation, to oppose removing the participation in the Paris Climate Accord. I voted against that resolution then. I'll be voting against this resolution today. This basically is covering up what is a political agenda on a number of different levels. One, it's in particular, is to take another swipe at the Trump administration and to basically admit that what he has done and the administration has done to move our economy forward needs to go back to the Paris Climate Accords with all the penalties and monies that the United States would have to facilitate in order to maintain its membership in that accord. And that same type of monies and commitments are being transferred to Pima County. It doesn't take too much reading within the resolution to find certain areas here that back up the political agenda and also the fuzzy science that is being quoted here, recognizing that climate variability is already negatively affecting sectors of our environment, economy, and community. That states the obvious that there's always going to be climate change, there's always going to be climate extremes, there's always going to be climate, and that they do impact at times the economy, but this resolution before us is not going to do anything to save us from those events. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I have to point out in the second paragraph of this resolution, it states, and I quote, and this was very insightful, "The Southwest is already the hottest and driest region in the United States." I had no idea. And Mr.
You
Chairman,
haven't spent a summer here?
I had no idea that the Southwest was the hottest and driest region in the United States. I've lived here all my life. So this is a huge shock to me, a surprise. And I will be voting against this, and I hope the board does as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Supervisor Christie. Appreciate that. But despite your sarcasm, I think that there's not fuzzy science here. This is real. This is something we have to do. This is not something that's some kind of bizarre swipe at the Trump administration. Although clearly, I'll be honest with you, I thought that Trump was very mistaken in removing the United States from the Paris Accords. I think it was a huge mistake. But that's just my own personal opinion. What I would say is appreciate your comments, understand your opposition to this. You've certainly stated it before. There are some folks who don't believe that climate change is happening. They don't believe that we face a crisis here on the planet. And that's a real shame. Certainly other scientists throughout history have been attacked for speaking about science and speaking the truth. So it's not unusual. It's not unexpected. But Mr. Huckleberry, I'd ask you to make some comments in response to Supervisor Christie and Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, one of the reasons I provided a Friday transmittal memorandum to you was to quantify the savings that have actually occurred through the actions we've taken with regard to energy conservation and other activities. They're very measurable and they're very real, and all you have to do is compare our utility bills within our buildings. Since we've started, our building costs have gone down by 38% in the utilities, and so all you need to do is do the math and you can come up with a pretty large number given how many buildings we have and the square footage we operate county government in. In addition to that, we've taken advantage of new rate structures and different rate structures associated with Tucson Electric Power, and by restructuring many of our rates, we've saved an additional, $1.5 million. So just simply in the energy savings and building management alone, that's about $9.5 million. It's very easily documentable. one of the expenses in the savings that we talk about is tobacco cessation. That's one that's going to vary over time, but you can actually measure it based on our employees enrolled in health plans. And so we know what occurs in those, and we also know what the long-term costs are associated with that. So I think when you think of the staff time put together associated with a plan and the actual savings we're seeing, the staff cost is small compared to the savings that are large, ongoing, and will increase. The one area that we are seeing an increased use of particularly energy is in our wastewater operations. And that's because these wastewater treatment processes have gotten so much more complicated and removing so many more constituents to create basically clean water out of sewage. And that requires more energy, more processes, more circulation. And so one of the things that we look at when we look at a sustainable action plan is how to basically treat the different organizations differently with regard to their savings, because some can and some can't, because the wastewater energy additions are basically regulatory placed on by state or federal agencies, and I think that's fine because we're producing clean water. But it's just a fact of life, so I think the reason I put this memorandum out on Friday was to have everyone understand that while some would claim the plan is something that we aspire to or it's feel good, it has real benefits that are measurable in terms of economics.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Huckleberry. Supervisor Miller.
I read through this memo and I've looked through this, and what I notice is there's always costs. You said more than 14 million saved and avoided costs. How much did we pay for those 83,850 acres of open space? We don't have a number there. That's just identified as a good thing. But then when we talk about the savings, so that alone is a huge cost.
Mr. Chairman.
I would note that those were voter approved.
Not all of them, but let's say,
The
okay.
vast majority of
But
them
it
were.
doesn't matter. It's still a
It does matter.
cost. It does.
It does matter
Yeah.
substantially.
So
because
what was
that's
the
something that the
cost?
voters of our community have had as an ethic, frankly, in our community since the Coronado National Forest was created in 1906.
But what
so
was
we
the
have more than
cost?
120 years, frankly, of less than that, 110 years of a conservation ethic that is reflected in numerous bond elections that have been successful regarding open space. So,
So what
I
is the
think that's
cost
a
of
pretty
that
much of a mandate.
What is the cost of that 83,850 acres?
It seems to be, Mr. Chairman, when she's done.
Yeah.
Supervisor Bronson.
I'm still speaking and I still
Oh,
haven't
I'm
gotten
sorry.
an
I
answer.
apologize. Please finish.
I'm not done. What was the cost of that 83,850 acres? So we don't put that number in, but we talk about this more than 14 million saved and avoided costs with absolutely zero documentation identifying what that 14 million is, how it was saved. And if you want to just take this document and believe it without any documentation, without looking at the performance metrics, I think it's extremely important that we look at what those metrics are and what kind of behavior they're driving. And so this memo, yeah, it sounds nice, but you don't have any documentation or anything to back up these numbers, and you certainly don't identify any of the costs associated with this. And it's not just developing this report. It's the ongoing efforts year by year. Read through this report, folks. Look at the hours and hours and monies that it is going to cost the taxpayers to implement this plan. I think it is something that needs to be analyzed much deeper than what we've gotten here.
Supervisor Bronson, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Huckleberry to respond.
At this point, facts don't seem to matter, so I'll just withdraw my question because apparently facts don't matter. It's clear from some board members. Mr.
I think that's
Huckleberry.
true, and before we go to Mr. Huckleberry, I'd also add that just in retrospect, the purchase of Tucson Mountain Park is probably the most profound action ever taken by the Pima County Board of Supervisors, and it was a decision based on parks and recreation. And at the time, it might have seemed kind of crazy setting aside that much land, but it's demonstrably impacted the development of the west side, and ultimately protected the desert in a very important way and provided an amenity that I'm not sure that you could quantify using any metrics, that has really been beneficial to our community in so many ways, it's not even funny. So yeah, I guess facts don't matter anymore. Mr. Huckleberry, please.
I just asked for one fact and I can't get one.
Mr. Huckleberry, please.
Mr. Chairman, and perhaps the fact associated with 83,000 acres of open space would be appropriate. And the cost of all of that acquisition is easily determinable. All you have to do is go back to the bond issue of 1974, 1986, 1997, 2004, and add up all of those bonds that were voter approved by typically about a 70% approval rate to acquire open space to preserve the most important natural open spaces within Pima County. And the voters were willing to make that expense. As a result of that expense and their approval, and I would say that 95% of that acreage was acquired through bond approvals, which means voters. We've been able to basically comply with all of the requirements for about the next 20 to 30 years for Endangered Species Act compliance with our Section 10 permit associated with federal agencies. And so I think the benefits of that accrue not only to the county, but they accrue to the general economy and mostly the building industry or the development industry that needs to and wants to continue to operate in the unincorporated area of Pima County. So those are measurable benefits and measurable cost.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Christie, please.
Just one last statement I'm going to make, and it's the last paragraph, top sentence of the resolution. This 7-year plan provides a practical framework to implement the county's commitments to the Paris Agreement. That's what it all boils down to. We want here in Pima County to replicate the Paris Climate Agreement. It's essential in this plan that we let Paris dictate and take the lead on any kind of climate issues in Pima County. And that's where I think the defining factor is in this whole resolution.
I would disagree with that completely.
It's right there.
The reality is that that's a statement in there, but that this report is based on quantifiable facts related to Pima County and its environment and its most sensitive biological areas, and what we need to do to continue making this region the best place it could possibly be. The fact that it coincides with the Paris Accords, not a bad thing in my mind, but I could understand how you might object. Any further discussion?
Call the question.
Roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christine?
No.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries 3-2. We're on to item 14, Abra Valley Irrigation and Drainage District Annual Election Cancellation. Chair will move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, this is all under Clerk of the Board. If no one wants to divide the question, I'll move items 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to vote on item 16 separately, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move item 15, 17, and 18.
Second.
And, okay, we have a motion and a second to approve items 15, 17, and 18. I would make note of the clerk's note on the agenda. Taxes due for the first half of 2018 are not eligible for refund or abatement. So, discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move item 16.
Second, motion and a second to approve item 16. Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, this one, according to what we received from the assessor's office, that they would not have given them this tax abatement if it had gone through the assessor's office, so I am going to vote no on this one.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Further discussion, I should say? Objections? One noted for Supervisor Miller. Ms. Miller, you object to the motion that was made? Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure because you didn't respond to me.
I spoke and said I was going to object to it.
But no, you have to vote when we ask for your vote.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
The reason is because the affidavit would have been objected whether or not it was timely. It wasn't a timeliness issue according to the assessor.
Motion carries 4-1. We're on to item 19, unfinished business.
I'll
Is
move
a
the
contract, a motion and a second. The second is from me. Discussion?
Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
This is the one that I had continued last time, and I still didn't see in the question an answer to the question that I asked, which was, based on the prior contract, they're just changing the existing contract number from 16442 to 19113. The question was from a report that we pulled down from the matrix online on the intranet. They failed to meet the outcomes of the contract. As of May 2017, the balance still available on their reimbursement request demonstrates that they had used none of the budget for the line item for transitional job wages and work experience for youth in accordance with that contract. So there was a finding and there was no response to that finding. And that was the question I asked last time. I still haven't got an answer. I guess Jan is shaking her head that there's no answer to this.
Mr. Chairman, that's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry if we misunderstood the question. What I heard I'm sorry, Supervisor Miller, the last meeting there was a comment about not having past reports and records. I did not have those. We provided, excuse me, through a memorandum from Mr. Huckleberry, a report of the outcomes of the contract for the current fiscal year, July and August. We also pulled all of the numbers for the contract for the fiscal year prior, July 2017 through June of 18, and have that information as well, including those numbers. So again, this is a contract that's changing the name of the applicant.
Right.
If there was not, it was my understanding to the question was wanting those monthly reports and the background information.
This is what I read off at the last board meeting, and it was an agency corrective action plan off the Pima County intranet site, the performance matrix for grants, and it was a monitoring review that we pulled down. DK advocates failed to meet the outcomes of the contract, Section 7, outcomes, job placement, and job or entered employment rate. As of May 17th, the balance available on their reimbursement request demonstrates that they had used none of the approved budget line item for transitional job wages and work experience. This was the question I asked. This is right out of my last board information, and I still haven't got an answer to it. And it was listed as a finding approved by a woman named, the plan was done by Jacqueline Andrade, approved by Marilyn Hutzler on July 5th, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, we'll get it again. That is not the question I heard asked last meeting. I apologize if there was confusion.
That was the question I asked because I'm reading from the same document.
I heard nothing about a finding at the last meeting, if that was my error. We did not hear that. I heard a request for reports and information, and we thought we had responded to that. I'm happy to get back to you then, additional information. It sounds like for 2 fiscal years ago, because we've only provided the current fiscal year, last fiscal year. If there's information about a finding for that other year is what I believe you're suggesting, then we will respond to that.
This was from 2017, and the problem is we're just changing the contract number and moving along and letting these people have outstanding corrective actions. And the person that was responsible was the owner of this agency. And now changing the name of it, it appears that there were some issues with name changes in the past on this same contract, that there were a lot of issues on that. So, but this here, I expect an answer.
My recollection is similar to Ms. Lesher's. I don't recall a discussion about a finding during our last board meeting, but I don't know. My hearing aids were being repaired, so I might have missed it, Ally. My recollection is exactly the same as Ms. Lesher's.
We can go back and review
what
the video.
I would say is that we have a motion and a second before us. This is only a name change. I believe that finding, if it does exist, will be addressed at the appropriate time when the contract is up.
And as I recall, it's at no cost.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
So I'm going to
it's
call the
just
question.
changing it from
Call the
one
question,
name
Mr.
to
Chair.
another, but it's still an issue on the contract. 2 years
Okay,
outstanding.
so, well, let's move ahead and vote on it. Roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries 4-1.
Mr. Chairman, we're under Development Services now. Item 20, I'll move the item.
Motion and a second to approve item 20, which is a final plat with assurances, case number P18FP00001, Star Valley Block 14, lots 1 through 53, common areas A, B, and C. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries.
Under Finance and Risk Management, item 21, Quarterly Report on Collections, I'll move the item.
Motion and a second to approve item 21. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. On to item 22, unfinished business acceptance, Sheriff's Department, State of Arizona Department of Public Safety to provide gang intelligence immigration team enforcement mission program.
Mr. Chairman, I move the motion.
You move the item?
I move the item, I beg your pardon.
Motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I note that there's a $116,666.67 general fund match. I'd like information on what those monies are being applied for, applied to, how they're being used, what the match on our side pays for is essentially what I'm asking.
Go ahead, Captain Theo, please.
If you don't have the information now, I just get it to me.
You have something to say over there? Come on over here to the
Chairman
mic.
Elias
Oh, go ahead,
and
I'm
Board,
sorry.
Lieutenant Spinney is here to address questions on this grant.
Hi, Lieutenant. How you doing? Come on up here and give us your name for the record, and we'll be glad to hear your information.
I'm Lieutenant Edward Spinney. I run the Narcotics Special Investigations Unit at the Sheriff's Department. The grant, the Get 'em grant, pays 75% of salary, ERE, and overtime. So that remainder would be.
So it's essentially salaries.
Correct.
That's the other 25% of the salaries.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Any objections? We're on, the motion is approved unanimously. Industrial Development Authority, number 23, Telesis Preparatory Academy Refunding Project, including Resolution 2018-67. Chair will move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Objections. Hearing none. Motion carries. We're on to hearings. Item 24. is a
Mr.
hearing
Chairman,
on the collection of constable fees.
it is a
including
hearing.
ordinance 2018-28. Supervisor Bronson.
It is a hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us in opposition to this item at this time? If not, I'm going to move we close the hearing and approve item 24 and ordinance 2018-28.
A motion and a second to approve item 24 and close public hearing. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to franchises, licenses, and permits, items 25, 26, 27. Chair will move those items and close public hearings. Motion and a second to approve items 25, 26, 27, close public hearings. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order. I'm not sure I closed the public hearing on item 24. I did? Okay, all right.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Bronson. Okay, we're on to item 28. These are comprehensive plan amendments. Case number P18CA00002, Luminex LLC. I don't have any cards that have been submitted for item 28. Okay, if we want to come forward here, sir, and speak, please give us your name for the record, and then you got to fill out a green card because, you know, you don't get to speak if you don't have a green card. Oh, very good. Okay, thank you. We got it. John Muha. Thank you, John. Please, your name for the record.
Yes. John Muha, M-U-H-A.
I've been a resident there for 19 years. Most of my neighbors are highly worried about flood control in this area. Ever since 2013, the developer has been promising us a hydro study. So far, none has ever been submitted. There is flooding in the area, and we're worried that this development will make things even worse. We just met with the developer this summer. He promised again the hydro study, still no results. So that's my primary concern. And my neighbors are quite adamant about this. I'm surprised they're not here. But at any rate, also, what happened is when they ran a 12-inch sewer line, wastewater put in a 60-foot wildcat road. And so now I have vehicles going 60, 70 miles an hour, dune buggies and ATVs, right on the other side of my fence. So in a sense, wastewater made a wildcat road in my backyard. And I want to oppose that. I have been in contact with wastewater, and they were helpful to a degree.
They agree that they caused this roadway to
They built it.
happen? Yeah, they built it. I know.
It's
I just want to make sure that they're in agreement
line.
of that.
It's a
Yeah.
12-inch line. I could show you. Well, it's also in the documentation, but that shows where they ran it. So this Wildcat Road now has dumping problems, access. I just merely asked them, because in 2013 I was promised a 150-foot setback from my property to the development, but now wastewater put it right at my fence line. And with the traffic going back and forth, I merely asked them to restrict access. So going back and forth with wastewater, eventually they told me that they checked with the GIS unit, which you can see on Google and everything else, that this is a 60-foot wide road they put in. It's line capped, and instead of restricting access with a fence or gate or something, they said they're going to ask the sheriff's department to patrol it, which will not happen.
Your objection is to this comprehensive plan amendment or to this Wildcat Road?
Well, the line has been run to support this development. So if we do not, or at least go for further review on this development, I think we should be able to address the flooding issue, and I think we could address this Wildcat Road and the access to it if we postpone this measure.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, are there a response from the developers or from wastewater that could address these issues?
Is there anybody here to represent the developers? Very good.
I think it was Steve at the planning group.
Yeah, how are you?
Very good. State your name for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Linda Morales with the Planning Center representing
How are you doing?
Luminex. I'm good. I'm good. Well, representing Mr. Lenahan and Mr. Heron, who are here as well. We did have the meeting and had several people come out, and the issues that were raised were less to do with the comprehensive plan amendment and much more to do with issues that we can address during the rezoning. And we heard from them loud and clear that flooding is a concern out there. We've actually already engaged Clint Glass, the hydrologist, and he's at work looking at the issues, looking at what, when we develop this subdivision, we can do to alleviate maybe some of the other issues that they're having. The wastewater road is there to serve the entire area, not just our development or proposed development specifically. At that meeting, we also talked about other things that we could do again during the rezoning process, such as blocking access, like with bollards. We are not proposing to use that or develop that as a road. That was a concern that was brought up at that meeting. We actually have an access easement that would get us out to Marion, Cleveland in a different route. And then there was a little disagreement actually among even the neighbors, I think, between whether they wanted access to that or not. So those are all little issues that we can definitely work with when we get to the site planning process and get to the rezoning, where we can put conditions and restrictions on at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Supervisor Christie.
Is Mr. Jenkins here? Can he address
Chris Carmine DeBonis.
Or, okay, Mr. DeBonis, could you address the Wildcat Road issue and the situation there that was described by the property
Mr.
owner?
Muha.
So Chairman Elias, Supervisor Christie, as was noted, when a wastewater line goes in, and this is a 12-inch line, the department needs to maintain access to that, and there are times when fairly large equipment may need to get in there to do maintenance or repair on the line. So I think that there are a variety of different solutions that we can work with the neighbors and with the developer on in order to control access along that. It's an easement is what it is, so it's not a roadway, although I understand that it can be used for purposes that would appear to, that it's a roadway. So I think that
That could drive you crazy.
Understandable. So I think that the department has had some engagement with the residents out there. I think that we can get back in contact with Mr. Muma and his neighbors and work with them on a solution separate from the rezoning action that's taking place, the comprehensive plan amendment before you today, and then the subsequent rezoning and site development process that can stretch out over a period of time. There may be greater solutions that we can identify in the interim on our way to maybe a permanent solution.
Thank you, Carmine. Mr. Huckleberry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think we'll take care of the access issue. And if you give your name and number to Carmine, the person who was just talking, before you leave, and we'll gate the road. That's fairly easily done, so we can control that. And I think it's correct that during the zoning process is when they're required to do all the hydrology and hydraulic studies that deal with flooding and flood control issues.
Please come up to the microphone if you're gonna speak. Yes. I'm sorry, and if you could repeat yourself, just so we get it on the record.
John Muha, M-U-H-A. I could provide you with the correspondence that I had with wastewater to date. It was going quite positively up until the point where they were not agreeable to limiting access to the Wildcat Road. They were suggesting Pima County sheriffs, which I'm not sure why, because I think Tucson annexed this land. Right. So I don't think that would even be their jurisdiction. And they Carolyn here from Wastewater, her last comment a couple of weeks ago was perhaps putting up signs. And I don't think that would be effective.
Supervisor Miller?
Yeah, that's a concern, because there's an area going on in my neck of the woods right now that I can see that people are going to start flying up and down with motorcycles and four-wheelers right behind and beside people's homes. So I'm sure I'm going to start getting calls on the one up there as well. I know I wouldn't be real appreciative, but are these meant to be new roads, or are they just access?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Huckleberry.
In installing a 12-inch water line, you basically have to clear an easement area and then dig it all up and put it back in, and it gives the appearance of a road. And so what we need to do is take more affirmative actions with regard to closing those things, because they're not authorized to be a road, and they will never be a road unless they're fully improved, paved, and curbed with the standards that we have today. So we will take care of this particular problem by fixing the road, and we can pretty much guarantee that something will happen fairly quickly to close off the access, if it's nothing more than installing a fence across and putting up a gate where we have a key padlock in case we need to get in and maintain the facility.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and if we could get on the issue there in Supervisor Miller's
Yeah,
district
well,
as
I
well,
think I know.
so that we prevent somebody from having to experience what
bonnet.
the gentleman who's come here today to speak has
And,
done.
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman,
Bronson,
it
please.
may not necessarily be the county because they're utility easements as well. And I don't know in Supervisor Miller's case whether it's a county, it's wastewater. Okay.
Well, we can
But
intervene
we have the
anyway.
same problem with utilities,
That's just
gas
wrong.
and electric.
Mr. Chairman.
Bothers me.
And
Please, Supervisor
communications.
Christie.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this item?
I have no other cards that have been submitted, Supervisor.
Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing and approve the comprehensive plan amendment for PC 18CA00002 and approve, subject to rezoning policies as recommended by staff and the commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 28, and I assume you wanted to include in that closing the public hearing, sir?
Please.
Okay.
May I just add that?
Please.
That in this process, that the issues that were raised by the speaker representing some homeowners be fully addressed and vetted with the proper and appropriate county agencies.
Yeah, Supervisor Christie's correct. This is the first bite at the apple. You'll have another one that'll be much more comprehensive during the rezoning process. And that's really what it's more appropriate to deal with flooding issues and those kind of hydro reports that come out. They are accurate in that. But I really would encourage you to please stay active in this because I'm interested in this. We're going to see it again. We're going to remember this conversation. And if you can get your neighbors to participate in a discussion with Ms. Morales and the Planning Center, it's probably going to work out better for you when you get that second bite at the apple.
And Mr. Chairman,
But it's critical that you continue to participate. Please, Supervisor Christie.
And to that point, you kind of jump-started the process here.
I'm glad you did.
By speaking, so this is getting everything in the works to give you a head start on a lot of the issues that are facing.
Right. But there's a different level of approval for comprehensive plan amendments. Please, if you want to speak, please come to the microphone.
The Planning Center pretty much referred me to wastewater, so.
We're going to work on the wastewater issue. I assure you that's going to get
I think they heard
fixed.
you loud and clear.
Yeah, we got that.
So, yeah, I was dealing with them and they were quite helpful, but
They're still going to be.
they referred me to
they're still gonna be
wastewater
helpful.
and that's where I was concentrating. Yes.
Understood. Understood. Thank you. I appreciate your time today, sir. Roll call.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
What
Sup-
about me?
I'm sorry. Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez? Yes. Chairman Elias?
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. We're on to item 29. This is a comprehensive plan amendment and a public hearing, case number P18CA00003, Harbor Trust et al. I have a number of speakers that have signed up to address the board on this item. Actually, two, and then one who wants to speak if needed. Why don't we start with a comment from the owner's representative? Is anybody here? Oh, there you are, Jim. Jim, if you could please make a comment, and then we'll hear from our speakers. Then I'll ask you to respond to their questions as well, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Elias, members of the board. Thank you. Jim Portner, Projects International. I will just make a few very brief comments, and then I'm glad to sit and listen to the public testimony and happy to respond at that point. This is an application for a comprehensive plan amendment to change the designation of this property from its current LIU, low-intensity urban, to originally it was medium-intensity urban. We've modified that to medium-low-intensity urban in response to some of the neighbors' concerns with the more intensive and higher density and even commercial options that are possible under the MIU designation. Do we have a graphic availability? Can we turn on the...
Just put it there on that table.
Is that
in the center.
automatically? All I wanted to show with this, Mr. Chairman, was that, once it comes up,
It takes a minute for it to come on, and then it usually starts with a picture of Supervisor Valadez. And then
beautiful.
it
There it
goes
is.
on.
I love it.
Please don't be alarmed.
Okay, I'll try it. Well, we're
There it is. We got it.
There we go.
Well, maybe not.
All I wanted to show, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
we're at the northwest corner of North La Cholla and Overton Road. We're talking about this piece, approximately 22 acres. We also have, I just wanted to show this, your next item is actually related to this. We have two separate comp plan applications. This is the first item, which is this item. The next item is this northern piece. Even though it's two separate applications, it's only because there were two separate ownership interests. We are viewing this as what would be an integrated project that we would want to come into the rezoning process as one comprehensive application for an integrated single-family residential subdivision. What we're talking about is an expansion of the existing developed residential density that's already up to and even jumped the roadway of Overton Road. The fundamental reason, or one of the driving forces behind this, is the Pima Prospers policies and the smart growth policies that say we should concentrate our density in our established transportation corridors. To this point, La Cholla Boulevard coming north is a full 4-lane divided facility only up to Overton Road. However, right now as we speak, utility relocation is going on in the entire corridor north of Overton all the way up to Tangerine Road. And in January of this year, about 3 months from now, construction will continue or begin on that portion of the roadway to have it match the cross-section that is south of Overton Road. So we will then have, in about the end of 2020, a full 4-lane divided cross-section from River Road all the way northward to Tangerine. So our request is in line with Pima Prosper's policies to concentrate our density and our growth within those established transportation corridors so that we can increase efficiency in traffic movement, reduce trip miles, build future prospects for transit, and all of the rest. So I wanted to just swing back to the P&Z's recommendation. As I said, we originally came in with an MIU, medium intensity urban designation, only because that's what this entire district is down here. We were just basically trying to match that. But after our conversation with staff and the commission, and after hearing the public testimony, they were concerned about densities in MIU. They can go up to 15 rack, 15 units per acres. We're doing nothing near that. Our subdivision is going to be about 3.5 rack, 3.5 units per acre overall, which is even slightly less than what is to the south of us. So we were happy to go to the medium low intensity urban designation, and I think that addressed some folks' concerns, and I know it made the Planning and Zoning Commission happy as well. So I'm here to say thank you very much. I would ask for your support of the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have, and if none, I will sit down and listen to the public testimony.
Supervisor Miller, do you want to hear from the public first?
I
or
do.
you
I
want
just
to
had
direct your
one-
questions to Mr. Portel now?
I have one question
Partner.
for you.
Please.
And I know I'm not sure if this needs to be corrected, but on the agenda, it does say from LIU to MIU, when in fact it's medium
The other way around.
intensity, low. No, it's going from LIU to MLIU, not MIU. So I didn't know if I needed to if there needs to be a correction on the agenda.
Well,
Because it still
Mr.
says.
Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the agenda, I believe, is correct because that was formally the original application. That
Mhm.
was what was publicly noticed for the hearing.
Right.
But just to clarify and to make sure we see where this has cut, is at the Planning and Zoning Commission, their recommendation now to
Right.
the board,
Right.
based on that original application, is MLIU.
I understand. I just
Supervisor
wanted.
Miller, what I would ask you to do is make that clear if you make a motion on this item, since it is in
Okay.
your district, just so we have absolute clarity on it, okay?
Okay, I didn't
Thank
know
you.
if you'd want that
No,
correction.
that's a good
Okay.
catch. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you did that. Thank you. Oh, we'll hear from the public now. Our first speaker is going to be William Wilkenine. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your patience being here. I know it's difficult to wait your turn sometimes, but you know,
okay.
whatever you have to say, please give your name for the
Okay,
record.
William Wilkenine, I'm one of the neighbors here. First issue that I've got is specifically with the agenda, the way it was given to us. Did not agree with what the recommendation was from the
P&Z.
Planning and Zoning Commission and stuff, so we wanted to make sure that this did not get passed as it is stated there. The second issue that I will bring up again, and I realize, as you brought up in the other place, that concerns about flooding are addressed during the zoning portion and stuff, but I want to make sure that you guys are aware of the issues with this particular property.
Please.
This particular property sits in a FEMA Zone A designated flood zone. And I've lived in this area for 28 plus years, and every time we get a monsoon storm, water is coming down from the hills to the north of this property, not originating on the property, but from the hills to the north, which are going to be outside of this development and the adjacent development. And so this water, besides being just water, brings a large volume of soil and sand deposits down from the hills and basically cover Overton after every storm. And by large volumes, I am talking truckloads of sand. I think you can talk to your transport group. They are out there constantly every summer shoveling this dirt out to make the road passable again. And our concern of myself and some of my fellow neighbors is that this sand and soil issue is going to cause any type of drainage system that is eventually put into this system to try to control flooding is going to become overwhelmed. They're already have been out there trying to dig this stuff out, and we think that we're concerned about the homes that are going to be within this development, and also what potential could happen with the drainage system becoming clogged that then cause water to go into our homes. And, I think also, if these drainage systems then become owned by the county, you guys are going to be out there spending money digging them out. So
Thank you very much,
comments.
sir.
And I got a map. I don't know if you guys want this.
Any comments from
Mr.
staff
Chairman?
on the issue of dirt and sand from upstream? Is that okay, Supervisor Miller? if
I
ask
was just going to ask Mr. Portner
Oh.
to address that, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, he can do that now, or we could hear from the rest of the audience,
Well,
but
I'm
it's
happy
okay.
to jump up
Go
only
ahead.
because I think
Go
I
ahead.
can address most of Mr. Wilkins' concerns. He's exactly right, and I just wanted to show you on the sketch again.
No one ever tells me that, so.
Okay. He's exactly right. What's happening right now, this is under the existing condition, you've got a very large thread of wash, and it's actually braided and it widens out, and that crosses or tries to cross what is now North La Cholla Boulevard. What it actually happens, hits the roadway, spills, and comes all the way south, and you can even see the channel braiding down here and inundates this entire intersection, and it's an absolute mess. Under the proposed construction plans for the northward extension of North La Cholla Boulevard, the project includes a very large culvert under this roadway right at that location. It also has some capture structures that are now going to take all of that and put it under the roadway. So what used to come down to the south and wrap around this entire intersection is now going to be basically made high and dry. When we come in with our subdivision plat, if we're allowed to go to the rezoning stage, we'll have to do, if the county didn't do it or the roadway project didn't do it, a letter of map amendment. We're going to have to do it with our subdivision. In the end, the final result here from Mr. Wilkening and his neighbors, right now, the FEMA flood line that he was talking about comes all the way to the west here and inundates about the eastern 100 feet of these lots adjoining our property. That will all be now taken out of the FEMA floodplain. So if you're paying flood insurance now, that'll be an opportunity for maybe not have to pay flood insurance anymore. But with the roadway project and the subdivision project, all of that will be made high and dry. So I just wanted to jump up and...
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I didn't know if any staff had any further comments on that.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Miller, Flood Control did comment on the comprehensive plan amendment request, and they've highlighted something worth noting, and that is, for the most part, the flood control resource areas shall be avoided. So there will be a fix, but we don't expect significant channeling. For the most part, it's going to be remaining in a more natural state. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, our next speaker is going to be John Lakey. Mr. Lakey, if you'd come forward, please, and give us your name for the record, I'd appreciate it. And say what you got to say, please.
Okay.
Hi, my name's John Lakey. I live at 2290 West La Cresta Road. I've been there 15 years. I was also a member of the La Cholla Citizens Advisory Committee for the La Cholla road expansion that built the bridges over the CDO wash. I'm opposed to this amendment. I attended the August Planning Commission meeting. There were several errors on the proposal. One of them said approximately 3.5 residents per acre, as Mr. Portner said, but he put it in as MIU. His answer at the time, when asked why it was MIU, he said, well, that's because the other areas around there were also MIU. Didn't make any sense to us why you would be saying 3 residences per acre, and yet you're asking for 5 or more in your planning. It was actually Mr. Casagrande who caught this, and the Planning Commission basically fell all over themselves, bent over backwards, trying to salvage Mr. Portner's application, and they were kind of doing an amendment on the fly. How do we do this? Oh, let's change it to MLIU, and that's exactly what you've got, is you've got the modified version. It should have been submitted as MLIU in the first place, but wasn't. Casagrande also pointed out that had to do with the vicinity of these businesses and so forth. Also in that application and the information from staff, it says that the nearest businesses are at La Cholla and McGee, 4 miles away. Well, check Google Maps. You'll find out that that's about 1.8 miles, not 4 miles. So it's less than 2 miles. Most importantly, all the residents that actually border this thing, I'm not sure how I get this guy to work here.
She's the boss. If you put it on there, she's got like magic hands or something that makes it appear.
Oh, okay. Up there. Okay.
I think you can even make it bigger, can't you? There you go.
Yeah, there you go. We actually had 3 people speak in opposition of this project. Myself, Mr. Casagrande, and Ms. Maddox. This is a vacant parcel here, but all the properties that are on the west side
adjacent to it,
adjacent, are opposed to this. Mr. Casagrande couldn't be here today. I'm not speaking for him, but you have his written information in your packet. He's in Canada, but we're in opposition to this. The last item is, if you look at the area. Another blurry map. This is Lambert Lane. This is Hardy down here. This is La Cholla. This is the area in interest. And you're really trying to change this whole area of lightly populated into a dense area like this down here. So we're opposed. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Lakey. Any questions? If you want to ask your questions now, sure, go ahead.
I didn't have any questions. Is there another speaker?
Mr. Portner, I'd like you to respond to Mr. Lakey's comments. I think he has some interesting points.
Sure. First of all, about the first part of it was the change from MIU to MLIU. Yeah, I'm very upfront about that. We did try to do MIU simply because there was a huge piece of MIU. All those subdivisions were similar to ours. We just thought it made sense to keep that, be consistent. Once it became clear, even though we were very clear about exactly what we were building and what we were not going to build, once it became clear that that was a concern with several of the neighbors, because the MIU district does potentially allow more intense and higher densities, then we said we did not have any objection to going to a different category to box us in better if that gave folks a certain assurance that we weren't going to try and do a
But you see how that makes people feel very uncomfortable about what your intentions are, sir?
Absolutely, Chairman Elias, and I can assure you there was nothing intentional, and there was no
Well, I know you, and I know that that's not the type of
switch,
person
but,
you are, but
you know.
this is these people's homes.
Understood.
And so they're uncomfortable and they're nervous.
Understood. And of the folks that are here today, I would also tell you that I've had interactions with several of the other folks that live immediately adjacent to. We've walked the site together. We've sat over their kitchen table and talked this through. And while they have concerns, they want to make sure it is simply done properly and responsibly from our end. And I would pledge to the board, as far as that goes, if you do find a way to get us to approval today that allows us to go to the rezoning, I'm going to do what I always do at the rezoning stage, which is to try and carry out what our priest who said the invocation here today. Be respectful and be civil with each other even when honest differences are there. Every rezoning I've done like this over the last 4 or 5 years where we're kind of infilling or putting new density in our established corridors has exactly that issue. We have honest differences. And I would tell you that every time we engage each other with civil, respectful discourse, we have always come to a way where we can use either greater setbacks than the code allows, do some limited height limitations, do wider buffers than the code mandates to make sure that we do, in fact, respect these people's homes.
I know that's your notion. I know that's the way you do business, and I appreciate that very much. But it continues on, and it just makes people uncomfortable when these kind of errors happen. So I feel obligated to speak up for them, not because I distrust you, but because of the impression that it leaves. And I would say that there is that second bite at the apple again during rezoning, and that's of some comfort to you. But under the circumstances, I would ask you, Mr. Portner, to please go an extra mile with these folks so that they feel reassured and understand what kind of accommodations you're making for them at rezoning. If this should pass.
I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, and I promise all members of the board I will do that.
Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I had just one question. This is planned for residential development, correct?
Single-family detached residential.
Because he did bring up an issue, a concern about potential commercial development, and I think with changing the designation to MLIU, that was the intention, that it's just single-family.
Exactly.
Development. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. That it?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
Are there any more speakers?
No, we're okay.
No? Okay. So with that, I think it's pretty clear that we need to make sure that the communication is really strong with the neighbors and with their concerns. And I want to close the public hearing and move P18CA00003 Harbor Trust, North La Cholla Boulevard Plan Amendment at the request of Harbor Trust, Michelle and Robert Harbor Trust, the Buck Family Revocable Trust in Lynn Harbor, represented by Projects International, to amend the comp plan from low-intensity urban to medium-low-intensity urban, and use the 22.5 acres for at this section in the Tortolito planning area, and as approved with the subject to the standard and special conditions as recommended by staff, which includes that change to MLIU, which allows between 2.5 and 5 rec versus the original MIU designation, and as recommended by staff and planning and zoning staff.
Approval subject to rezoning policies.
Yes, yes.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Chris, did you get that? Is it absolutely clear to you?
It is clear to us. It's similar to the recommendation that the Planning and Zoning Commission has forwarded.
Very good. I was going to say that we did not include any comments about the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it seemed to me that they got it right in the end. Very good. Okay, roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Yes.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Very good. Motion carries unanimously. Again, I really ask you both to please stay involved and stay involved in this process, as difficult as that might seem, and I ask you to have faith in it. We're on to item 30. This is a hearing. This is a comprehensive plan amendment, case number P18CA00004, Questland Group. Do we have anybody here representing the...
It's Steve.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's Jim too again?
It's Jim again, yeah.
Good Lord. I thought I'd seen all of you today. No wonder you left your stuff up there. I was going to say.
This is part of the same.
Very good. Why don't you come up here and make some comments about your item?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, you didn't hear from me again.
I'm just kidding. You
I
don't
know
have to
you
be
are.
sorry.
The only thing, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I wanted to illustrate on this one, in that it is related to the one to the direct south that you just recommended or you just approved, and we'll go to rezoning. This would be a continuation of that. We see it as an integrated subdivision. This is simply kind of a glorified bubble diagram of the northern piece. The only area we would actually be developing for residential would be this kind of blue polygon here. The remainder of the site is going to be left untouched and would be part of our contribution towards CLS. That constitutes almost 2/3 of the overall property. And related to Mr. Wilkins' concern about floodplains and the flood control district's policy on its approval and comments on this case, this is the large zero riparian area and floodway as it comes through and will be directed underneath the roadway. So that entire area that is inundated now will be part of our on-site CLS set-aside. All these areas would be preserved in perpetuity during the subdivision platting process. I think at one time, Pima County was actually interested in acquiring this piece because of the upland areas and the floodway and the wildlife corridor. Under this proposal, these areas would be dedicated in perpetuity, which are the really valuable resources on the site, would be dedicated in perpetuity as part of the CLS at no cost to the citizens of Pima County. So that's the primary point I wanted to make on this one. Again, I'm glad to answer any questions any of the board members may have of me.
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman and Mr. Portner, I note that this is a lower density than you're asking for on the other property. You're going from LIU 0.3 to LIU 1.2.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
That's the way the overall density calcs out. The subdivision, the developed area itself will be largely similar in type to what we build down here, but when you do the overall density calcs, with all of the set-aside areas, you end up having a slightly lower number in terms of total rack.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if no one else wishes to speak, I'd like to close the public hearing and approve Comprehensive Plan Amendment P18CA00004, Quest Land Group, LLC et al., Northwest Bible Church, North La Cholla Boulevard Plan Amendment, with approval subject to zoning policies as recommended by the Planning Commission and staff.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve item 30, case number P18CA00004, Quest Land Group LLC. Approval subject to rezoning policies as noted by the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff. And close the public hearing. Discussion? Objections? Hearing none. Motion carries. Okay. We're at 12:10. We're going to take a short break and be back here. The rest of these comprehensive plan amendments and then a code text amendment that we have. We have a number of speakers that have signed up for, so we're going to take a break. We'll be back at the sound of the gavel. we could get everyone to return to the dais, we'll go ahead and get started again. I'd like to call back to order the October 16, 2018 meeting of the Pima County Board of Supervisors. We're on item 31. This is a hearing and a comprehensive plan amendment. Case number P18CA00006. Dynacare Properties, LLC.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller, please.
No one wishes to speak to this item. I'd like to move to approve comprehensive plan amendment for P18CA00006, Dynacare Properties LLC, West Desert Harbor Circle Plan Amendment, with approval subject to rezoning policies as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as staff, and close the public hearing, if I didn't say that.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to approve item, those are 33. To approve item 31 and case number P18CA00006, Dynacare Properties, subject to rezoning policies noted by the Planning and Zoning Commission and by staff. Close public hearing. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 32. This is another hearing. This is a zoning code text amendment. Case number P18TA00004, Food Access Number 2, Neighborhood Market in Rural Homestead and GR1 Rural Residential Zones, zoning code text amendment.
Mr. Chairman, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address us in opposition to this item at this time? If not, I move to close public hearing and approve the item as recommended by the Commission and staff. And this is P18TA00004, Food Access Number 2.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve item 32. It's a zoning code text amendment, case number P18TA00004, subject to, in accordance with the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 33. And I have a number of speakers that have signed up for this particular item. Chris, do you want to make any comments before we go to our citizens who wish to address us?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to Daniel Ice.
Very good, thank you. Daniel.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name's Daniel Ice. I'm the Chief Building Official with Development Services. In 2012, it was decided to retain the 2012 code cycle through 2018. Starting in January, the County City Building Code Committee held 10 public meetings with the goal to strive for uniformity across jurisdictions, regionally and nationally. The Building Code Committee members have unanimously recommended the proposed amendment package for adoptions. During the Planning and Zoning public meeting, the commission members unanimously recommended the proposed package for adoption as well. Adopting the 2018 codes in Pima County will turn the region to current building safety and efficiency standards. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, how does this compare with the city's adoption?
Supervisor?
You said it was a city-county commission?
Yes, Chairman Elias, Supervisor Bronson. It is a...
What is the city code mirror our code, I guess is what I'm asking. And if not, where is it different?
It mirrors the closest it has since I've been working with the county. The main differences come with administrative processes that the city and the county, they're different, just different administrative processes. And the city adopts fire code and the county does not adopt fire code.
Okay, thank you.
What about Appendix T?
Yes.
Appendix T, we're going off of the recommendations of the Building Code Committee. They, after listening to local industry groups' input, the Joint County City Building Code Committee voted not to adopt Appendix T in the county. Based on their recommendations, the appendix was not included in the county adoption package. I will say if we do elect to adopt the appendix, it would mirror the city's appendix.
So there is a significant difference that you failed to mention.
Yes, sir. As far as I hadn't quite got there. You're correct. I did. I apologize for that.
Okay, very good. We have a number of speakers. We want to hear from them now. Our first speaker is going to be Sean Coate. Sean, thank you for being patient today. I know it's a long haul, but we made it here. Thank you for being here, and please give us your name for the record.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, good afternoon. Sean Coate, Southern Arizona Home Builders. Appreciate your consideration for the 2018 Building Code update. I would start with commending your Chief Building Official, Dan Ice. He shepherded that process for 9 to 10 months to finally get us here. It's a Herculean effort. It's in the weeds and some pretty heavy stuff with building codes, and he's done a good job. As you know, as Dan mentioned, Pima County participates in the Joint Building Code Committee process, which includes industry members, subject matter experts, and local building officials who implement these standards. This was the first code cycle in a long time that didn't significantly increase costs, and I think that's a win for Pima County's home buyers and a credit to the committee. Appendix T has been mentioned. The city did adopt Appendix T. That was because they had an existing policy, and Appendix T was used to clarify some things. It didn't raise costs. They worked with us to eliminate all the cost increases in the appendix. I don't think Appendix T is really the big facilitator for solar that some think it is. I'll leave that up to others to decide. But Pima County's been the region's leader in housing policy that doesn't increase costs the last couple of years, and so I would ask you to continue that process with the adoption of the 2018 codes. Thank you.
But you'd be willing to work with us to if we do decide to add Appendix T into this conversation in a similar way that you did with the city?
Absolutely.
To make it work for everybody?
Yep.
So,
very good.
And the cities, there's no additional cost, is that what, however you work
That's
that
our
out?
hope, but we have a commitment from them that if that changes, then we'll sit down and reevaluate.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Sean. Next speaker is going to be Robert Bullhack. Or Bullhack? I'm sorry. No, I thought I had you later, but okay.
You do, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bulicek had to leave and
Oh,
asked
okay.
if I would read his statement. My name is Bruce Plank.
I'm gonna let you read his statement, although it's unusual, but this is a public hearing, so I
Great.
want to offer you that opportunity.
Thank you, and let me just read through this quickly. Chairman Elias and members of the board, I am Robert Bulicek, the Ward 3 member of the Tucson Commission on Climate, Energy, and Sustainability. A few days ago, the IPCC produced their newest report, excuse me, there we go, showing the global warming of 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, and detailed the enormous economic, health, and security costs of business as usual. We in Pima County have the opportunity to do our part to eliminate the pollution that is disrupting the planet. Most of these things we need to do, we can do at a profit. There are issues such as making decisions based on first costs instead of lifetime costs that lead to poor decisions. Another example is not paying attention to the health and climate costs that polluters impose on others without paying compensation. Any productive solution must include internalizing those costs to the polluters and compensating those so harmed. With adoption of the 2018 codes, we have an opportunity to take a small step toward improving our pollution and long-term cost issues. It is a small step, but it is in the right direction. Energy efficiency has the highest return on investment of any project. The cheapest kilowatt hour is the one that you save. It will be helpful if you include Appendix T, the solar ready option that you all were just questioning about, so that Pima County is synchronized with the city of Tucson, which has already adopted Appendix T, and I might add with a few minor modifications that I would urge the county to also adopt. Adopting Appendix T will further improve the return on investment for installing solar and return air quality, health, and climate benefits to everyone. Another fundamental problem is the split incentive between builder and home buyer. The builder doesn't pay the long-term utility bill, so has an incentive to pay attention only to the first cost. The homeowner usually isn't aware of what technical features would lower their operating costs. Building sustainable features in the new buildings has the highest return on investment because it's doing the right thing the first time. Making the building ready for new technologies like efficient heat pump, space and water heating, solar, and EV charging means substantial cost savings over the life of the buildings. Adopting these codes is a small step, but nowhere close to what we must accomplish to keep warming below 1.5 degrees centigrade. A revenue-neutral solution is to nudge markets in the right direction with fee-bates, where building permits cost more for low-performing buildings and those with fossil-fueled appliances. That revenue could provide incentives for all electric, zero-emission buildings and electric vehicle infrastructure. Pima County can be a leader in solving climate change. Most of what needs to be done can be done at a profit. I hope that you will not only approve the 2018 codes, but do the other things to make Pima a zero-emission county, fully electrified and powered with renewables. That ends Mr. Bulichek's statement.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Why don't you just stay there and make your own comments now, since I have a card from you?
That'd be great.
And if you would state your name for the record and that you're representing yourself at this
point.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Bruce Plank. I live in the city of Tucson. Thank you for your work on various energy efficiency and solar projects. But I think focusing only on county facilities is not enough. We need to push and pull the community to do more conservation and more solar, and that's what these codes are for. Energy conservation is critical, and adopting the 2018 Energy Conservation Code is extremely important, including Appendix T, as we have discussed. All Appendix T requires is that builders designate an area on the roof where solar panels could be located and designate on the electrical panel where the input from the solar panels would be. The cost is minimal given the cost of houses today. So Pima County has already flirted with having a solar-ready policy such as Appendix T. There was even a task force at the county in 2017 that I was a part of that discussed adopting a solar-ready ordinance for the county, but decided to wait for the 2018 code cycle. Well, here we are. Finally, Pima Prospers even includes, quote, incorporate a solar-ready policy as implementation item G to physical infrastructure energy element 4.3, goal number 1. So again, I think the Appendix T is consistent with the Pima Prospers. But I think you should go further, frankly. I think that you should lead out and require solar on all new homes, with reasonable exceptions, of course. Cities like South Miami does it. The state of California is going to do that. And we know it's never going to happen statewide, but it's up to the cities and counties to really lead out. So I think it's important for Pima County to move ahead of the curve and not merely adopt the codes, including Appendix T, that other places around the country are adopting. Same with water usage. The county's been a leader in requiring waterless urinals, but unfortunately in the residential arena, the county has never adopted low flow requirements for showers or for sink fixtures or for toilets. EPA has a program called WaterSense, and I would urge the board to direct staff to adopt WaterSense EPA standards for all new appliances in residential construction. Technically, it's in Table 604.4 of the International Plumbing Code. Finally, I think the county should also require all new construction to have electric vehicle chargers. Again, the details can be worked out by staff, but I think that this board should continue the leadership that Pima County has shown by moving ahead with requiring EV chargers in new construction, the details of which to be worked out by the staff and brought back to the board at a later time. Finally, one last piece, and that is you've discussed...
Quickly, sir, because you've
You've discussed the lack of consumer representation on other boards, and you wisely included that in an earlier resolution that the board adopted. There are no consumer advocates of any sort or no public advocates on the City-County Code Committee, which I think is an oversight, and I believe that that code committee should include members of the public as well as the representatives of the industry that the previous speaker mentioned.
I think you're correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Very good. Our next speaker is going to be Allison Solomon. Had to go? Okay. And Nicole Gillette? Nope. Okay. That concludes our speakers. It's a pleasure of the board. Hearing none, I'm going to move forward and move approval and close the public hearing of P18TA00006 and instruct staff to conduct the hearing process as necessary to bring forward to the Board of Supervisors for consideration the adoption of Appendix T of the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code.
And I think you mean ordinance number 2018-30 as well, adopting that.
Yes, you're right. I should have mentioned that. It is on the subsequent page, so that my motion does include ordinance 2018-30.
Second.
Sir,
No,
you
you're out
can't
of
address
order.
the public. You're out of order now.
The hearing's
I need you to
closed.
sit down. Thank you. Discussion. Roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
No.
Supervisor Miller?
I just want to clarify with Supervisor Elias, this is, you're going to bring item Appendix T back later for
Yes.
discussion?
That's correct.
That's
Okay,
correct.
so yes.
Okay, so it's a yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie, you want to?
Yeah, I needed that clarification too, and based on that clarification, I'd say yes as well.
Okay.
Chairman
So-
Elias?
Yes. So the motion is approved unanimously.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
we're
Bronson.
under transportation, items 34, 5, and 6. These are hearings, traffic resolutions. If nobody wants to address us on these items, I move we close public hearings and approve items 34, 5, and 6, and resolutions 2018, 68, 69, and 70.
Motion and a second to approve items 34, 35, and 36 with the attendant resolutions and discussion. And close public hearings, excuse me. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to the addendum.
Item 3.
Item 3.
I will move the acceptance as recommended and want to thank everybody who, particularly the Freemans, who are donating $1 million to the Pima Animal Care Center naming campaign. But kudos to everyone on that list.
Absolutely critical, and so we do appreciate their generosity in this particular item, including Ms. Lesher, too. I was surprised.
Ms. Lesher, Ms. Kay.
Thank you.
Dr.
Discussion,
Smith.
objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 4, Development Services,
Move
Amendment to Star Valley Settlement Agreement and Development Agreement.
Move the item.
Second, motion and a second, discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no objections, nobody wants to divide the question, I'll move items 5, 6, and 7.
Motion and a second to approve items 5, 6, and 7. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. Chair will move the remainder of the addendum. Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. Hearing no objections, this meeting stands adjourned.